media industry by storm. For the past 8 years, over 4,000 students have gone through this amazing concept and are now working with major media houses, both local and international. Get ready for Season 9 of the Inter-Institutional Media Challenge on the 24th of November 2020 as we audition another set of media students with different journalism skills. The audition will be streamed live on all our Media Challenge Initiative social platforms, and from 30th November to 5th December, we will host the Media Challenge Expo under the theme, Keeping Journalism Alive in Times of Uncertainty. Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry, practical journalism skills building sessions, and live pitching sessions with media recruiters. Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has uncovered many talents that have taken over the entire media industry by storm. For the past 8 years, over 4,000 students have gone through this amazing concept and are now working with major media houses, both local and international. Get ready for Season 9 of the Inter-Institutional Media Challenge on the 24th of November 2020 as we audition another set of media students with different journalism skills. The audition will be streamed live on all our Media Challenge Initiative social platforms, and from 30th November to 5th December, we will host the Media Challenge Expo under the theme, Keeping Journalism Alive in Times of Uncertainty. Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry, practical journalism skills building sessions, and live pitching sessions with media recruiters. Since 2012, we have
Media Challenge being a home of digital journalism, something that we've trained university students and practicing journalists, it would be a shame if we didn't have this a success. Seeing the different panelists from different countries getting together to talk to the different university students who are also in their homes in different places of this country is something that we didn't see ourselves achieving. I've also come to learn that digital is the way to go. Online conferences is the way to go, because I realized that many of panelists were at ease when they're in different locations to participate in this year's expo. This has created a global village where we've been connecting to panelists from different countries, connecting from Nigeria, and from Nigeria to South Africa, and then to USA, Norway, Canada, from different locations, has created a global village. But also seeing the participants, especially university students, participating from their comfort zones. But also the end result is embedding all those people from different countries, from different locations, participants and panelists into one product. And that was the live stream for the days that's been on Facebook and Media Challenges. YouTube is something amazing. So this is an experience that you can't miss, be it in print journalism, be it in broadcasting journalism, online journalism. This is an experience that you shouldn't miss, because it is an experience that you'll never find anywhere, and having a feel of television in a conference is also something uncommon in Uganda. So please join us for the remaining days as we connect to different countries and connecting to different panelists, but also connecting with different journalists across the world.
Guys, what's up? It's your girl Cookie, aka The Last One, aka The Dreaded Voyage. And guys, today is Sunday and it is the third day of the expo at the Inter-University Media Challenge. It's been 3 days of hard work, 3 days of digital skills, 3 days of panel discussions, 3 days of so much, guys. This is where people's career starts. I am moving and I'm getting into the mobile newsroom where all the magic happens. We have the editors, like I said, we have the anchors, and we have the reporters trying to finalize with their work. We're going to move, and you're going to see for yourselves. But the best I can tell you is the feeling is overboard. I'm panting so much as if I'm the anchor, but I'm not even a judge. Anyhow, let's get in and let's see how it's going to be going down.
I'm happy to be here. We're working on our stories and finally we are getting up to, we want to present finally. Yeah, yes please. Yeah.
So what is your role today?
I'm editing stories and we are coming up with scripts after editing.
I'm very ready for anything that comes.
How do winners look? Say something to the camera. Say something a winner would say.
Winners look like me, so if you want to win, just look like me.
I'm so sorry guys, I do not qualify because I don't look like him.
I feel energy, though kind of shaking, but I have energy.
I'm feeling excited. I can't wait to represent my campus. Just tell me how you feel. How do you feel? Because you're super confident. I want to hear that.
Well, I feel nervous, yes, but then I always turn my nerves into confidence, and that gives me a way to relate with people because I want to do stories that are for the voiceless.
There's a salon in the room, guys. The mobile newsroom has a salon. Please move with me. Come with me, come with me. So, I'm guessing you're an anchor. There's makeup too. Hi, how do you feel?
I feel very excited and happy.
How do excited people look?
Well, they look exactly like I do.
What's your name?
My name is Kanan Arinda.
From where?
From Uganda Christian University, UCU.
I hope you're as excited as I am because we're going to get everything covered for you and you're going to have such a fantastic moment. Till then.
So this is exciting and I hope you know it. You have been invited. You are in the auditions. There's a huge chance to move forward and to become one of the Media Challenge Initiative Fellows at one point. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for all of you and I'm excited to see what you have produced so far. Let me just give a brief introduction to who we are. My name is Miriam Olsen and I'm since yesterday the program Director Uganda. Before that I was country representative. It's actually not a promotion, we just changed our titles. So now DW Academy is Germany's leading organization for media development. We are part of Deutsche Welle, DW, the broadcaster. Some of you might know us through TV or radio. And DW Academy basically aims at strengthening access to information and freedom of speech in many different countries around the world, including in Uganda. And it is our aim to also make the journalism education or journalism training more practical, more hands-on, because I think most of you know when you come from universities and you don't have the practical skills, it will be very, very difficult for you to find a proper job. You have the chance, of course, and you can train on the job, but it's easier to be prepared. And I think the Media Challenge Initiative is doing amazing, amazing work in this regard. They will not only give you the practical skills in one or two fields, you will be a holistically, how do you say, well-equipped task, one-man, one-woman army journalist And I think this is a huge opportunity to take it seriously, show everything that you can. I know there's a lot of capacities within you and a lot of skills. And I'm sure you will do an amazing job. And thank you very much. We will see us around. We are there from time to time. We have been partnering with MCI since 2018. And we are continuing to partner. And yeah, let's make this a success. Thank you.
Around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has uncovered many talents that have taken over the entire media industry by storm. For the past 8 years, over 4,000 students have gone through this amazing concept and are now working major media houses, both local and international. Get ready for Season 9 of the Inter-Institutional Media Challenge on the 24th of November 2020 as we audition another set of media students with different journalism skills. The audition will be streamed live on all our Media Challenge Initiative social platforms, and from 30th November to 5th December, we will host the Media Challenge Expo under the theme, Keeping Journalism Alive in Times of Uncertainty. Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry, practical journalism skills building sessions, and live pitching sessions with media recruiters.
I think that one of the quickest impacts that it has is that it's democratized news sourcing. Previously, news was really much officialdom. What the pandemic gave us was a chance to go into our communities and tell stories from our communities because our reporters couldn't come to office and go back home in time. So we're asking them to stay at home and work from home. And that allowed us to get a lot of community news stories coming to the TV screens. I think that the other thing that it has also offered us is introspection as the media. We've been running a media model economically that doesn't work, and it's been said that the media is dying all around, all across the world, and the pandemic has offered us that time to introspect and say, is this a news model that we can work with? Maybe we need to change our models, maybe we need to do something different, and that's now what we're working on, being able to deliver content to people faster and quicker and in the ways in which that they appreciate it. But also I think that the pandemic has offered us a chance to hold government to account. Previously, the interaction between government and the newsrooms was once a month, twice a month at most. Now, because of the pandemic, we have almost a daily interaction with government agencies, and holding them to account is one of those things that the media is doing currently. We work in a news organization. Now, news as a business has changed fundamentally. There's new news events and developments almost every minute. So being able to follow up on news stories and even contextualizing those stories is a hard one. And I think that what it's going to take is going to take just basic attention from media houses. Media houses have to sit down and say, these are the stories that we're paying attention to, and this is why we need to... I think that the greatest opportunity that has showed itself in this pandemic is delivering news in unique ways. And many news organizations have had to do that. Finding unique ways every day to do your job as a journalist has had its own impact on our audiences. Being able to do, for example, entire shows from my home, being able to shoot promos, have interviews, package a whole show from my home, that exposed me to a whole new way of doing the media business, but also exposed me to a whole new level of interaction with the news as an entity. And I think that the other great opportunity that this pandemic has brought with it is collaboration. More than ever now, newsrooms are collaborating. Yes. And
Testing, mic test,
because the
mic
pandemic
test.
has made us realize.
Yes. Are you married, Antonio?
I'm not married, but
you're about
not even about.
So what's the problem? What's not happening?
There's nothing like a problem about marriage issues. I want to put that right.
Organizations in crowded places so that they can get their own reporters. But
I had 10 now.
It's really a life sacrifice. If a story is where the problem is, then definitely some level of sacrifice is taken to tell some of these stories. And some of our own people have actually suffered the COVID-19 virus. They've been in hospitals and come out. So the basic investment in terms of public health has been done, but there's more to be done. But also, it's a catch-22 for us because a lot of sacrifice has to be done, and that sacrifice has to be done by reporters. There's no one who was prepared for the pandemic, and the Ugandan media is no exception. The pandemic really hit us hard. It came as a surprise. Of course, it had started in China and got to Uganda almost 4 months later, but we hadn't been prepared for it. We also not prepared for the level and scale of government response to it. So for example, the lockdown, we were caught flat-footed on how to be able to source news stories. When government instituted measures on curfew, we didn't know how to bring in guests at night. We didn't know how to do news stories at night. We also didn't know how to transport our staff and team. So it was really, it caught us unprepared, but we were lucky we responded to it as fast as we could. Always be prepared to take chances. I didn't know for a fact that I'd be doing a show from my home for almost 2 months. It was just when it hit, when the opportunity presented itself, I was prepared enough to do it and I was ready to take the risk doing it. Experiment with the things that you have at your disposal. We could easily have said, you know what, let's cut out the 9 p.m. news because we can't be able to pull it off. But being able to experiment with the things that we had at our disposal and bringing those experimentations to the public helped us in a way to tell the news. So be able and be ready to experiment. But the third and most importantly, just hold the vision. Hold the vision.
The world is going through an incredible period of change. The rise of COVID-19 is turning everything we knew upside down. So how do we cope?
Information can save lives, but how much of it is true? Who and what do we trust? Lies and falsities are swirling. The internet teems and overwhelmed with falsities.
Is COVID-19 real? How do we protect ourselves? What happens to all the money? Getting the answer wrong could be a matter of life and death. But we have the story.
We dig deep to uncover the truth from the lies, the news from the rumors. We provide you with the information that you need to stay safe.
Every week, we bring you the facts. We are the fast fact-checking news show in Uganda, powered by Youth for Youth. We bring you Debunk.
Welcome. Let me tell you why I am here. I am here to share with you something. As Tupac Shakur once said, don't believe everything that you hear or see. Real eyes realize real lies. My name is Andrew Onen, and this is The Debunk. As the name sounds, fact checks news, myths, and all lies which are coming with COVID-19 in Uganda and Africa. The infodemic, as recently pronounced by the World Health Organization, is coming with overwhelming information, hence creating panic. While the government and health workers are taking on the battle against the pandemic of COVID-19, on this show, a group of fact-checkers take on the infodemic crisis. In a layman's language, we'll tell you what is fake, what is misleading, and what is fact. Let's take a look at our first story. We start off with a claim about a possible relief mixture for COVID-19 disease that was published by Colonel Dr. Kiza Besigye Chifefe on his Facebook page on 16th August 2020. More insight on this story from our debunker and fact-checker Judith Nakawesi.
Debunk.
Dr. Kiza Besigye's post reads, "Please don't be misled. Prepare for possible COVID-19 infection. If you're prepared, you'll overcome it. Make your immunity booster. We need to quickly boost our body immunity to prepare for a possible fight with COVID-19. Proceed to prepare an effective immunity booster as follows. Blend the following in a blender for 5 minutes. 1 liter of hot water, 10 to 15 pieces of garlic, 2 lemons, 1 big fleshy onion, 4 thumb-sized ginger, and 5 red pepper. Let it cool down and take 2 tablespoons every after 8 hours.
Tablespoons of this concoction is what Dr. Kiza Besigye claims that when consumed every after 8 hours boosts one's immunity to fight COVID-19. In our investigation, I spoke to Dr. Francis Bugoba, a medical personnel at Mulago Referral Hospital, and this is what he said.
It is true to a certain extent, but it is not limited to fighting COVID. It is diverse. We have certain key elements in our immune systems that are built from certain small mineral salts or ingredients that are from within nature. But when somebody maybe not out the above that you mentioned, the ginger and all that, yes, lemon and all that, it's not limited to COVID-19. It's just that the current situation is pushing us to fearing COVID-19 than other illnesses. These key ingredients that you mentioned above are only going to help make elements available, but they are not going to be protective. For example, let me give you this example. If you go to the hospital and get vaccinated for measles, it boosts your immunity only for that specific antigen, which is measles.
Yeah.
But it does not protect you from maybe polio.
Okay.
These things that you've mentioned above will only contribute to the innate arm. The innate arm is the macrophages that are always available to eat microbes, the skin. They will only contribute to the innate arm. They will not contribute to the acquired or adaptive arm. You understand? That means they do not have a specific protective measure for COVID-19 in particular. The only recommended method of prevention of COVID-19 or any other virus is vaccination.
Okay.
And at the moment, we do not have a vaccine that is ready for COVID-19. So the best way to approach COVID-19 is to prevent it from getting to you altogether.
Okay.
Wash your hands, sanitize, things like that.
Okay,
Do not say, if I take the above, I will be safe. You will not be safe, because you can still get COVID-19 when you're very healthy, and it kills you. We've seen very people that have died of COVID-19 when they were actually healthy before getting it.
Let's take a look at the impact of this claim.
I mixed and developed serious ulcer, now which I'm struggling to treat.
Lemons have a very great deal of a certain acid which we call lactic acid. And in the stomach, the body needs an acidic medium to digest food. It has another acid called hydrochloric acid. So if you take lactic acid, it increases the acidity of the stomach, and the acid does some harm, which we call damaging the walls of the intestines and damaging the walls of the stomach.
Okay.
So if you mix lemons with red pepper, those two things, if taken on an empty stomach, can aggravate ulcers in a patient with ulcers, or can lead to ulcers in a patient with a predisposition to getting ulcers.
Anthony, negesta sawa kusaba. Kuma muna wala wagenda okusaba.
Omanyi gwe bultima wadde oyagala okimenye. Onyumiriza ensaba embere nga anti wano nga sirina naye ate ono byonna yalidde agambye okwogera ennyo.
Zino ze zirina okubiipinga gwe toba na micro.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, let we go.
I'm going to do it like this. When they say we go, I start, I welcome day for the Media Expo. Thank you so much, guys. We're streaming live on our social media, blah, 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 blah. There's quite a lot of experience you should expect today. But for starters, first things first.
The claim is false and unproven.
I'm going to be in studio with Bruto and Antonio.
Moving on a lighter side, did you know that it is claimed that in some places wearing yellow is prohibited? Let's welcome Florence Kabagenye, our entertainer and fact checker.
The bank.
I'm so
happy to be here with this week's fun segment. My name is Flora Shaw, and this is the D-Bank. Woo! I can't wait to show you what I've got. Let's get the show started.
In most cultures, color yellow symbolizes sunshine. Yes, I'm talking about the yellow I'm wearing. It is also in our Uganda national flag, and it symbolizes sunshine. No wonder when we were growing up as kids, we used to paint the sun color yellow. But the claims making rounds online that it is actually illegal to wear anything, as in anything yellow in Malaysia. I know you don't want to hear about anything yellow, but let me take you there. In 2016, the Malaysian government banned wearing yellow after a group of protesters stormed the streets of Kuala Lumpur, demanding the resignation of Prime Minister Najib Razak earlier in 2015. From then, anyone wearing yellow can be arrested under the assumption that they are anti-government. What is true about this claim is that wearing particular color yellow t-shirts like that one on your screen was banned. Not my dress.
Malaysia. Now me a proper Ugandan without propaganda. I will not be there because I love yellow too much. Yeah? I love even growing sunflower. You would miss money, eh?
While browsing through Facebook videos, I landed on a clip by Unknown Facts by Jen Mice published on 30th September about 12 normal things which are banned around the world. And in the comments section, not wearing yellow in Malaysia was not received well as a fact. To debunk this, I did a Google search and found this information on TripAdvisor. I also did a crowdsourcing technique from friends who have traveled to Malaysia who revealed that it is not fact that yellow clothes are prohibited in Malaysia.
The verdict is...
This is a misleading claim. I repeat, this is a misleading claim.
And in our next story, Joel Senyonyi, a Ugandan politician aspiring for Nakawa West Member of Parliament seat, shared a picture on social media which he claimed was from a certain source. Rukia Nabanja debunked this.
Debunk.
I received a screenshot on my WhatsApp showing that it was taken from Joel Senyonyi's Facebook account, and this is how it looked like.
The post read, I was sent this picture of a patient in Barara Regional Referral Hospital on a bed without a mattress. Some government hospitals actually do not have beds and mothers give birth on the floor.
Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has uncovered many talents that have taken over the entire media industry by storm. For the past 8 years, over 4,000 students have gone through this amazing concept and are now working with major media houses, both local and international. Get ready for Season 9 of the Interinstitutional Media Challenge on the 24th of November 2020 as we audition another set of media students with different journalism skills. The audition will be streamed live on all our Media Challenge Initiative social platforms, and from 30th November to 5th December, we will host the Media Challenge Expo under the theme, Keeping Journalism Alive in Times of Uncertainty. Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry, practical journalism skills building sessions, and live pitching sessions with media recruiters.
Hello and a very good morning Uganda, good morning Kampala, good morning the world, and good morning for whoever is watching us wherever on your Androids, on your iPhones, on your tablets, or your desktops. We are streaming live on our social media pages, which is at MCI on YouTube and Facebook. Welcome to day 4 of the Media Expo Uganda. It's going to be a beautiful, it's going to be a fantastic experience today. My name is Asha Kulsum, and I'm going to be joined with my colleague
Nelson Ruto.
And we are having a guest of the morning, Antonio Kisembo. Yes, the head of training here at the Media Challenge Initiative. Remember, our partners is the Media Challenge Initiative for this Media Expo, CAS. We have the European Union, we have the United States of America Mission to Uganda, and the DKW. The DW Academy. Well, today morning we are going to be having a beautiful experience. For starters, with Antonio in the studio, it's going to be fantastic. I'm just looking forward to whatever you're going to tell us. Guys are just there wondering, okay, what is Antonio doing today? How are you? Good morning.
I'm okay. Good morning to you.
It's kind of chilly morning, you know.
Yeah, it is, but I'm excited to be here. In the MCI studios.
So the coldness does not affect you at all, you know?
That's why you can see how I'm dressed. It's just fine for
you know, what has been your morning?
My morning is okay. I can't complain. It was cold, yes, I must acknowledge, but I think I've eased up into it. I'm now ready for the day. How is yours?
Mine is a very beautiful one. The fact that since Monday, everything has been going right here at the Media Expo Uganda. Okay. Remember, our hashtag is hashtag Media Expo Uganda, and I've been loving the tweets, the retweets, and whatever has been happening down here in studio. Coming to you from the Media Challenge Initiative in Kansanga. Some guys do not expect and surprise of this whole magic of the studio.
Oh, for real. Media Challenge, kudos. You guys have done amazing work. I wasn't here. I haven't been around for these 4
But
days.
you've been watching with the audience online.
That's why we exist.
But I've been stressed, you people. Today is like the only day that I have free. I've been having exams. Exams are crazy on that other end. But online, I see the activity and it's crazy.
But the beautiful part of it is that the fellows, the students of the academy, are the students who have made all this magic. Thank you, Antonio, and your team.
Anytime you feel like you want a studio, we are very much available to offer this to any person out there.
And I want to say, I guess I've not had enough. I'm going to come back for more training.
You should. Sure. We're always open to the fellows and any other person interested in getting any skill, as long as journalism and media related.
Yeah. My friend Ruto here is such a person who is so godly that we can't start anything without a prayer. And of course, with the success of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and today, we need a prayer. We need to thank the Almighty for all He has done for us and making things look this fabulous.
Most definitely. So yes, our viewers out there, it's time to get into a short prayer. So let's humble ourselves. Dear loving God, we thank you for today, and we thank you for the week as it has been so far. We thank you for the success that we have registered as Media Challenge and as individuals in our lives, in our struggles. We thank you for all your blessings, for your guidance, for your protection. And we pray, oh Lord, today that today goes wonderfully, that everything goes according to plan, and that you bless us with excellence and you guide us throughout the day, and that you show us where we need to be and how we need to get there. And that everybody is happy at the end of the day and we feel exceedingly, exceedingly fulfilled. Thank you very much. In Jesus' name I have prayed. Amen.
Amen. Amen. We needed this prayer because, I mean, today is a beautiful day. It's a big day. And we still have a couple of days to take it through. So indeed, He has helped us and He has been with us. Antonio, how are you?
I'm fine.
Yesterday
it's a
was
beautiful day to start with a prayer. I'm a staunch believer.
Yes.
So starting the prayer is going to help us to achieve.
So it's kind of didn't want to say,
yes,
give us a prayer and Antonio give us a prayer, because if Antonio was to take it,
I'm telling you, we'll be here for hours.
I would have prayed for just like 30
minutes.
30 minutes.
Well, yesterday was such a success. I was part of the audience.
Did you see the guys?
I was part of
Rahim, those suspenders.
I was part of the audience. I was part of the audience, and I was listening in to series like those of Miss Flavia, who was taking us through branding, and seeing the very many students you guys have trained, and they're out in the industry and they are actually practicing and they are branded. These were very beautiful series that we needed to look at, and I guess all those people who have been with us in the audience on our social media platforms, it was quite an interesting one.
Yes,
and were you part of it yesterday?
Oh yes, I was.
I remember. Yes, I remember you telling me on my WhatsApp. Well, it is a virtual digital thing, you know, we've always been there, but this is a different kind of experience that you guys have not shown to us ever since we started, ever since you started. But here we are. It is a virtual thing. What is this virtual experience? What does it mean to you?
I think the situation has made us go virtual. But for me, the experience can be summed up into two things. One is the shrinking time and space, and also the managed interactions that we are having through digital online systems. Gone are the days when people like David Hattie in around 1987, they were discussing that it will reach a point where time, space and distance would no longer be a factor to limit interactions.
Yeah.
And this is actually coming into reality. We are seeing how people in the USA, France, Nigeria, South Africa are all coming together under one roof to discuss issues. And our focus of keeping journalism alive in times of uncertainty has really worked out for us very well. We are looking at how then do we keep the vibe of journalism? And the technology, we are taking advantage of technology to be able to stream live and also reach out everyone out there in different countries at the comfort of your homes, in your sitting rooms, and we are able to reach out to you. But also the managed interactions, because when you are discussing, for example, issues of fake news, fact checking, you have interactions coming in online, but you need to manage these interactions. So the two things, the time, the shrinking time and space, but also managing interactions. I think we have taken advantage of technology to be able to manage these interactions and give people what they expect, but also have the expo in a different way, like we are doing right now. Everyone is able to watch us, and they can give us feedback, they can comment on all the topics that we are having today.
Yeah, but you mentioned, and I noticed you're a scholar, David Hattie, all these different things. But you mentioned that you've been linking up with people in Nigeria, South Africa. What has that been like for you? I mean, Media Challenge, we're here in Uganda, located in Kansanga, but we're going global. So Media Challenge progressing from back then to where we are right now. What's that like for you?
It's an amazing experience. Before this, we would go to universities and we would do camp there for 3 days and be able to train students in mobile journalism, youth participatory radio, social media. But when Corona hit, or the virus hit the country, there were a lot of things that were happening. And we had created a platform, the Alumni Network platform, that would enable whoever has been through our programming to have an opportunity to train, access this platform, and we continue the discussion with the Media Challenge Initiative. But we had not fully tested this platform. So when the virus came in, so we're thinking of different ways of engaging the students, different stakeholders. So we had to put into practice what we were talking about and take advantage of the technology to be able to conduct the training itself, but also think about how we can have the virtual auditions. So we had students register online and they were able to take a course, which course was in multimedia one with audio, video, photos, text. So it would help someone to self-teach. So you on this platform, you can be able to learn, you can be able to interact with your friends, and you can do assignments. And at the end of the day, you'll be graded and receive a certificate or get a skill or in module, in radio. So after trying out this, we realized that we could not gather so many people into one room. So we decided as a team to think about the different avenues that we will have. So and this is the digital platform. So we are looking at how we are connecting people through Zoom, connecting people through Facebook, connecting people through WhatsApp, through YouTube. So we are using all these platforms to reach out to these people. And it's just simple to us because we believe in taking advantage of technology. And remember, we are living in a digital world. Internet penetration in Uganda last year was around 37%. But now when the lockdown came in, you had a little bit of increase in the internet penetration because people were home now and they needed this information. So you have different people accessing internet through the mobile phone. I think around 23 million Ugandans actually statistics I think from UCC, so they have access to a mobile phone. I think that's by 2019. What does that mean? That if you have 23%, you have all the advantage to use digital skills to reach out to different people. And we know that mostly the people that have or are using digital technology are the youth. And the youth account for around 80% of the Ugandan population, if I want to believe I'm right. And we deal with universities where the youth are. So we design systems that help students access us through digital devices, like the online platforms, and be able to reach out. And it's the same thing that we are doing for the expo. that you can be in your village, you can be at school, you can be in the USA, you can be anywhere, and you'll be able to reach us. And I believe they are getting us loud and clear with the help of technology and the production team from the Media Challenge Initiative.
And I must say there must be, I assume and I believe that there are bigger numbers of turn up for this expo, because literally earlier we were having it in one place and limited to a number of people, the invites, but today we are all over and we are taking it global. You talked about having sessions for the students online. It's a new experience that we had not adopted, but we have got to adopt because of the pandemic, and having this expo, a virtual digital experience. Why is the future? What do you see in this?
I think the future to me is bright. We have been talking about technology, I've been talking about digital systems in this country, and appreciation has always been low.
Yeah.
So when the virus came in, and the measures that were put in place by the government to limit the spread of the virus, which involved decongesting concentration points like in schools.
Yeah.
So students went home. So the government, what they had to do is to find systems that would enable students to continue learning. That is digital. Though they use the traditional means to reach out, like print study materials, and the students would access.
Yeah.
But also use radio and TV. And schools now have gone extra to see how they can use platforms, websites, to be able to reach out to their students. And it's the same thing that we are also doing. So for me, I see the future being bright, and we are going to have more acceptance of technology in schools. We are going to have to see WhatsApp being used as a study platform.
By the look of things, Antonio,
yes.
Do you see us adopting, embracing, and continuing with this system even after the pandemic is worn out? Because UK was declared one of the countries that has got the medication for the virus. So do you think it's a better way for doing our things even after the pandemic?
Of course,
from your experience.
When you talk about technology, what it limits certain interactions. Like in-class interactions. So you would have this contact with the teacher in class.
So
but still, technology has also enabled these interactions even more. I was reading an article, I think in New York Times, where they were talking about how coronavirus has actually made people live online. That now reversing that is going to be very hard. That people now are saying, I don't need to physically be in a place to get a service. I don't need to meet Asha to be able to do something for me. What I can do is I can send my document, and she will go through the document, edit, and send it back. So that the connection that the technology has created now has enabled people to interact even beyond classrooms. That you can have a classroom beyond distance and time. I talked about time and space.
Yes,
because time and space would limit interactions.
Yeah.
So now we are having these interactions beyond concentration points like in a classroom. You are moving beyond a TV set. You are moving beyond radio, that you can extend audio services to different people out there in community so that they can access the messages through the internet. So I believe the appreciation will continue, and it's just a matter of policy and seeing that we have more internet penetration in the country. And when this is done, you're most likely going to see a community that is connected, a global village, and services will be easily done. Any point without limitation of time.
Should we say the students will be joined by some students in UK, I mean the MCI community from UK, from Sweden, from Japan, from...
Yes, I think that's it. It's what is happening actually. The skills building sessions we are having are being facilitated by international people. People from UK, from the US, from South Africa, and we are being connected as one. So I don't really need to go and sit in a physical class to see this professor. Now what I need my internet, I need my mobile phone, I need a computer, I need a tablet to be able to ask Professor Ruto whatever it is.
You see,
Ruto, to respond to a question that I'm interested in understanding.
Yeah.
And this is going to help in knowledge sharing.
Yeah.
But I also want to talk about what could be the limiting factor, corporate issues, especially when it comes to accessing content online. So what would be important is, as stakeholders, as Media Challenge Initiative, what we are trying to do so that we can have open resources that people can access anytime. That when you go to our platforms, you should be able to access certain materials that will help you to acquire more skills, knowledge, and better yourself. Yeah. So if you can have more people create the content, put it out there, students like you, Ruto, if you're still a student, I don't know if you're still a student, to be able to go there, to write a blog about your experiences. Someone out there can read your blog and they will learn your experience of studying during this pandemic. Yeah. So it will help to share knowledge with people who are not in Uganda, but on a global scale.
Wow.
Sure. That's a challenge for us content creators. You, Usher, and I have to take this on. What do you think you can do to contribute towards this? His very last point, providing content for instance, next year's MCI Fellows.
Well, I was taking it important when he says the community is going to be united globally from different parts, and I personally look forward to sharing a class with someone from the US because it's quite a different experience and mine is quite a different experience. So sharing the experiences, bring things together now, like keeping journalism alive in the times of uncertainties. The people in the States, the people elsewhere in the country have got a different way on how they are practicing or living or practicing journalism in the times of uncertainty or in the pandemic, which is a different version of Uganda. And so from what he says, I think I'm a part of you guys from day one to day last. Like, I'm a community, and I'm proudly to walk over there and say I'm an MCI fellow. So surely I think I'm going to be part, with or without, I'm going to be part of you guys, like it or not.
That's a promise, that's a pledge. Yes, but now moving on to a more important topic right here. I have been asked to ask this question. So many people via WhatsApp really want to know.
Okay.
Antonio, when are you getting married?
Oh, okay.
The silence, eh?
I don't know who has asked that question. If I would get to know that specific person, but
you see something for.
There is no time for marriage. Any time can be time for marriage. So I can choose to get married tomorrow or even this afternoon. So
okay.
It's not.
And things are now virtual, you know.
I'm thinking about time being no longer
and space
interaction.
You have to get also theoretical about this, eh?
So you don't need to worry about that. But we are here. That's the most important thing, to see what we can contribute to the world and the nation, especially during these
hard times.
Because of the pandemics, there's been limit to certain movements, and of certain movements, you being unable to do a story, which requires you now to think about how better you can tell a story even from your room. So these limitations have been there, but now this expo is actually coming in to see how all these challenges are being handled. And we have had interesting discussion from different panelists on how actually we can stay safe, number one, but also do the journalism.
True.
Yeah. You have a mobile phone. Take advantage of the mobile phone that you have to report stories, report things that are happening in your community.
Oh, yeah.
So that if you are doing that and I'm doing that, I'm contributing to the community. I'm a storyteller in that sense. So I think it's a high time that we embrace fully the use of technology to tell stories, to communicate, to reach out to everyone who needs the message, especially about the spread of the virus,
Indeed.
how we can prevent the spread of the virus, all these things we need to look at them and see.
And that's a very important point right there. In fact, for those of us here who are wondering how they can continue as journalists, that's the topic for this entire Media Challenge Expo, the year 2020, keeping journalism alive. And Antonio has just given us his 2 cents on how we can do that. Using our mobile phones, we don't really need to go far looking for cameras and everything. We can cover these stories, create impact, share information, all that good stuff, just using our mobile phones. But today's topic, today in particular, is the unreported or underreported stories. Antonio, you have been in this field for such a long time. What do you think is not getting enough coverage?
Wow, that's an interesting question.
Dynamic.
What's not being given attention? Of course, there are a number of issues that are not given attention, but I will highlight one or two, especially around personally get so much touched disability, people living with disability, especially in schools. So you realize that very few stories are actually reported about people living with disability, on how they can access education and what systems have been put in place. Do these people really know that there are policies that govern institutions, high institutions of learning, even primary and these lower level training institutions, on how these people can actually access better education services? Are we reporting about them? How many stories in a month you get in our media being reported about these people? So I think for me, basically, I see that every time I go to a given institution, I always try to see are these provisions, facilities there. At your university, do you have all these facilities? That's the question. Why are we not reporting about such issues? And I think the topic is going to help us to broaden, talk about a number of issues and what actually we need to do as citizens, as reporters, as fellows, as students, journalists, what we need to do to be able to report about these things. Take an example. If you are Ruto and you study from this school, if you go there and cover this story and look at what systems has the school put in place to enable these individuals access education, and also not only access education but ease of access. Because there's access to education saying that the school is there, we have put in place some of these measures, but ease of access. People can't see, the blind. How are we helping them? So to be able to access the education, so that the education that Antonio is getting is the same education this person is getting.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
Yes, so you mentioned here marginalized communities, for instance, yes, the disabled. But I also noticed that women are not really getting as much coverage in the issues that they face as they should, or as is due when it comes to the media. For instance, gender-based violence. That's something that has escalated during the period of COVID-19. So many people are reporting cases. But then I also read somewhere, UN Women says that less than 40% of those who actually experience this reported. So it's something that's happening under wraps. And as journalists, we have a responsibility to do this, but we are not doing what we should. What do you think is that barrier, that limiting factor that's preventing us from executing what we should execute?
I think it's important that it starts with one, individuals themselves in the newsrooms. I know sometimes we have policies in the newsrooms which are on paper, and they are not practiced. I think it would be important for media houses to try and see some of these policies put into practice. And dedicate maybe on a weekend that is to have some of these stories run. Or decide on a day and say that this day at least we should have a story
or a future
appear on this topic. And the only things that you get to hear of around gender is if this person has done something big, that's when they report about them. Then you leave out what is happening in homes, in families. And also when such things happen, what do we report? So it would be important to pay a lot of interest in the real issues happening in the homes, in the communities, and see how we can address them. Because there are a number of issues. Sometimes these issues are covered because it has a public figure involved. So if it's not a public figure involved, then little attention is going to be given to such a story. So let's put the policies into practice, dedicate space for such stories in the media houses to run, and also to have like a column, have journalists that will cover these stories. But it starts with us as student journalists, as journalists.
Practicing journalists.
Practice this. If you see something that is happening, report about it in its full sense. Let us understand the matter that is happening. So if we do that, you, me, and the person that is watching us will be able to
help us to put it to the table. Well, when he tackled things about gender, it kind of runs in my nerves. The adrenaline starts blowing and boiling, and we are talking keeping journalism alive in times of uncertainties. We are having an election in a pandemic, and when we talk about gender, we talk about the women. How are they going to make a breakthrough in their political career in times of the pandemic? What does media ought to do to make sure they strike a balance in reporting such issues? Because when you talk about the untold stories, the issues that have been left behind, when we look at generally this political season, we see a few women are on the mantle of this. What do you think we ought to do, especially to the people watching? Because these are the things they expect. If media does not feed you this, then you're not going to eat it, you're not going to consume it. So what else, how do we strike a balance in feeding our audiences?
I think we need to allocate same time that's allocated to main politicians. I'll give an example, the presidential race. We have but how is she being covered? How many stories have you had? And do we only report about her when she's being stopped to go somewhere? So are we looking at her manifesto, for example? I think it's allocate this same portion of time to all candidates equally, so that you can have all of them articulate these issues, and not only to wait when something wrong has happened. That's when you want to report about her, not report about when she was chased out of the house, so that makes a story. No, I think we should be looking at the actual issues happening, look at the manifesto, and report about some of those issues. But also, like I did mention, it also goes back to policy issues. That we have these policies that will make sure that we equally report about everyone in the newsroom, but which is not happening. And you as a journalist, you as a student journalist, it should be now in your mind to think about when I go into the newsrooms. If I'm reporting a story, I need to look at all sides so that I equally balance the story. If I get the side of this person, why not? But also the source, in terms of the sources, how do we involve each and everyone in the stories that you are writing, the stories that you're doing?
If I may break you short, briefly, or in just a few minutes, one minute actually, would you just draw a picture of how you're doing it here in your trainings? Because I highly believe in such trainings, you've got to strike a balance so that when you're skilling the male child, you're skilling a girl child. in just a minute so we can.
You are very true. We have in our programming, we have gender sensitive reporting as a topic, which we offer to the students that we train. So we ensure that they have a full understanding of what is gender sensitive reporting. So if I'm reporting about gender, what are those key issues that I should not leave out? And the knowledge and the skills that they are getting, we hope they can replicate this in the newsrooms that they are joining, so that we have gender sensitive stories that are being reported from the community of journalists that we are training. So that's what we are basically doing, and we have quite a number of sessions that see how we can incorporate different issues in the community involving gender issues.
Well, thank you so much, Antonio. Ruto, allow us just take a short commercial break, but we do return as we still talk keeping journalism alive in the times of uncertainties. And today, trust me, is going to be a beautiful experience because we have beautiful, experienced experts who shall be discussing or taking us through a series of unreported, underreported, the ignored issues in the media industry. Today, we are the hashtag Media Expo UG. Keep on our social media platforms, which is at MCI on YouTube, Facebook. Keep the treats going. We'll do take a break. We'll be back.
I think that one of the quickest impacts that it has is that it's democratized news sourcing. Previously, news was really much officialdom. What the pandemic gave us was a chance to go into our communities and tell stories from our communities because our reporters couldn't come to office and go back home in time. So we're asking them to stay at home and work from home. And that allowed us to get a lot of community news stories coming to the TV screens. I think that the other thing that it has also offered us is introspection as the media. We've been running a media model economically that doesn't work, and it's been said that the media is dying all around, all across the world, and the pandemic has offered us that time to introspect and say, is this a news model that we can work with? Maybe we need to change our models, maybe we need to do something different, and that's now what we're working on, being able to deliver content to people faster and quicker and in the ways in which that they appreciate it. But also I think that the pandemic has offered us a chance to hold government to account. Previously, the interaction between government and the newsrooms was once a month, twice a month at most. Now, because of the pandemic, we have almost a daily interaction with government agencies, and holding them to account is one of those things that the media is doing currently. We work in a news organization now. The news as a business has changed fundamentally. There's new news events and developments almost every minute. So being able to follow up on news stories and even contextualizing those stories is a hard one. And I think that what it's going to take is going to take just basic attention from media houses. Media houses have to sit down and say, these are the stories that we're paying attention to, and this is why we need to pay attention to them. And one of those stories is really the COVID-19 pandemic. So we'll have a great deal of work to do in terms of follow-up, but also a great deal of work to do in terms of patience and paying attention to the things that matter. I think that the greatest opportunity that has showed itself in this pandemic is delivering news in unique ways. And many news organizations have had to do that. Finding unique ways every day to do your job. as a journalist has had its own impact on our audiences. Being able to do, for example, entire shows from my home, being able to shoot promos, have interviews, package a whole show from my home, that exposed me to a whole new way of doing the media business, but also exposed me to a whole new level of interaction with the news as an entity. And I think that the other great opportunity that this pandemic has brought with it is collaboration. More than ever now, newsrooms are collaborating. International news organizations are working with local news organizations to be able to get news stories from here and relate with the rest of the world, because the pandemic has just made us realize that we are one world. I think that many media organizations have paid attention to the reporters' health in terms of sanitizing, having masks, what places do you go out, what stories do you tell, when do you tell them. Media has largely avoided crowded events and crowded organizations and crowded places so that they don't infect their own reporters. But again, media is really a life of sacrifice. If a story is where the problem is, then definitely some level of sacrifice is taken to tell some of these stories. And some of our own people have actually suffered the COVID-19 virus. They've been in hospitals and come out. So the basic investment in terms of public health has been done, but there's more to be done. But also, it's a catch-22 for us, because a lot of sacrifice has to be done, and that sacrifice has to be done by reporters. There's no one who was prepared for the pandemic, and the Ugandan media is no exception. The pandemic really hit us hard. It came as a surprise. Of course, it had started in China and got to Uganda almost 4 months later, but we hadn't been prepared for it. We also not prepared for the level and scale of government response to it. So for example, the lockdown, we were caught flat-footed on how to be able to source news stories. When government instituted measures on curfew, we didn't know how to bring in guests at night. We didn't know how to do news stories at night. We also didn't know how to transport our staff and team. So it caught us unprepared, but we were lucky we responded to it as fast as we could. Always be prepared to take chances. I didn't know for a fact that I'd be doing a show from my home for almost 2 months. It was just when it hit, when the opportunity presented itself, I was prepared enough to do it, and I was ready to take the risk doing it. Experiment with the things that you have at your disposal. We could easily have said, you know what, let's cut out the 9 p.m. news because we can't be able to pull it off. But being able to experiment with the things that we had at our disposal and bringing those experimentations to the public helped us in a way to tell the news. So be able and be ready to experiment. But the third and most importantly, just hold the vision. Hold the vision.
Hello and welcome back. Welcome back. Today is the 4th day of the Media Challenge Expo. We're going virtual, and those of you joining us on Zoom, welcome. We have the session coming up in just a few minutes. It's starting at 11. We're going to be here with Lisa Kanyomozi, and it's going to be amazing stuff. Joining us on Facebook, welcome once again. YouTube, welcome. This is going to be an amazing day. We're here. It's I, Nelson Ruto, with
Asha. Of course, the hashtag is #MediaExpoUG. You can make your tweets flow and flow and flow. You can always also share our videos on Facebook, which is at MCI Facebook. We are streaming live as well as YouTube. The people on Zoom, you can share, let the world know, your friends know that we are making this year's Expo and we are going virtual.
Yeah.
Well,
now, another thing, a very important thing, the video that you are watching right before we came back on was about media viability. That was Raymond Mujuni letting us know what he thinks about it. But it's a very, very important thing, especially considering the fact that this Expo's major focus point is keeping journalism alive. So allow me throw this to Mr. Antonio over here. What do you think about this? Just keeping journalism alive, media viability. Give us your thoughts.
I think when you talk about media viability as a topic, and also trying to see the sustainability of media, talking about the different avenues that media houses.
And especially in such times.
Yes, the different avenues media houses, or things media houses should be doing to make sure that they are sustainable. They continue giving us the information, they continue doing their role as media houses. It is indeed during these times a challenge, but for me I think to be able to do good journalism sometimes requires sacrifice. That's number one. And what I would really think is media houses being able to have a pool of resources from different media houses. That can we see media houses collaborating or journalists collaborating on stories? Can we see journalists being able to do a funded projects? So that if we want good journalists to continue, and especially in times of COVID, we need to have funded projects, a pool from the different media houses, so that we fund stories, good stories, and good journalism. And that will help so much on how you can sustain and have more stories coming in and in. Also, in terms of collaboration, it may not necessarily be media houses only, but you can have even students themselves, student journalism students, looking at the journalists themselves. You can partner with the journalists and be able to do a story. You can have someone in the US collaborate with a journalist in Uganda and be able to do a story with limited funding. Because as an individual, I may not be able to do a story, and my media house may not fully fund me to do a good story, to have good journalism that will speak out there. So, looking at these new ideas, getting projects that are really funded to do good journalism, but also collaborating on stories. Personally, I think would help, especially in times of COVID or crisis, to be able to have these stories run. And also being able to take advantage of technology. Like being able to blog, write stories online, do a podcast, stories which can be paid. And if these stories are paid, that means there's some money that is coming in. And so the idea is about looking at creative ways, new avenues of doing stories from the traditional ones that existed, that I need to sit in a newsroom and then go out in the field. Why not take advantage of the spaces that we have and resources that we have, like gadgets, mobile gadgets, to be able to do these stories, then share the stories at the comfort of your room, because you'll not be incurring costs of having to go out there to interview people, but you can do an online interview. You will be able to run a blog which in the long run can pay you. You're able to do a podcast which can pay you in the long run. So looking at new ideas and avenues by different media houses would help them to make sure that they continue running, but also leaving doing it a traditional way, thinking how we can take advantage of technology, because there are media houses that are can't operate beyond the circles they
Kampala Metropolitan.
So why can't we go online? Why can't we look at the content we're producing, share it out there? At the end of the day, when people like your content so much, you'll be having some revenue coming in through the different online revenue streams. So I think that would help.
Well, Antonio is much speaking of keeping journalism alive. That's the language, and I want to borrow it from one of the practicing journalists, Daniel Lutaya, who was saying this is not a time for media houses to have the ego. This is a time for journalists to work together. You talked about collaborations, and I for one know that the Media Challenge Initiative, when the pandemic was just announced in the country Uganda, you guys put out Foot Soldier Journalists. That was a hashtag. What was the hashtag about? The hashtag I will stand in. Yeah. Tell us more about it. It was quite a good initiative that I felt like these guys want journalism alive.
So the outstanding campaign was majorly put out there to see this army of young journalists that were ready, equipped and energized to take on the role of any journalist.
To fill the space.
To fill the space. If any media house is interested in a reporter, so we'll be able to provide this person to be able to edit, to be able to report a story, produce a story, write, take photos, because they are multimedia journalists, and we believe in one woman, one man army journalism. So the outstanding campaign, we still have this force, and it's the same force that has enabled us do stories through our online radio, which is MCI Radio, where we have quite a number of programming and a number of stories that we are running. And these stories are purely done by these students. So they are able to report stories from their communities, package a story, and share out there the story for anyone to enjoy. And it has what we call the solutions journalism component, not only reporting about what is not working, but what we can do to help the situation, and how these stories can be replicated in the different communities.
Well, in the interest of time, in just a minute, thank you so much, Antonio Kisembo. Antonio Kisembo is the head training. Those fellows, you see, the products, the goodness in the fellows and the students, is Antonio Kisembo. Well, for today's program, it's quite an interesting one. I personally am looking forward. And tell us, you're going to be in the audience, and maybe one thing you can tell the viewers, those of us joining us virtually in the audience, what should they not miss out, and tip them what is so good about these speakers of the day.
So these are in international and local speakers, so we have speakers from all over the world, so you don't want to miss out to get that international experience from these people on underreported stories. So please join us as we have this session on.
What is that bit that you know already is going to be told to us, but you still want to have more of it? Like, you know, there's always a good thing and you want to eat it and eat it, you know? What is that thing that you feel you want to listen over and over, and it's going to happen in this session?
So for me, I want to see how Caleb, a panelist, how he's able to run Minority Report.
Africa.
How he's able to run this platform and is able to do good journalism. So you can't wait to get to that point and listen to
Caleb.
Yeah.
So we expect you to be in the audience.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
You can raise your hand and tell people, yeah, I'm going to be in the audience.
Yes, I will be.
Thank you so much, Antonio Kisembo. It was beautiful thoughts and beautiful views of Antonio Kisembo sharing with us part of the things that we should expect, part of the things that are happening in the journalism industry, part of the things that must keep journalism alive in or without the certainties. Well, those of you on Zoom, hope you're getting us loud and clear. We are also streaming live on Facebook, also on YouTube. Our hashtag is the Media Expo UG. Today is going to be a beautiful experience that I look forward to like in the night. I couldn't wait for this day. I'm like, yo, these hours are running at a slow pace. I mean, if it was a Netflix movie, I would have subscribed 2019 to have this day.
Wow, man, that's deep. That's really, really deep. And seeing that you're hosting this with me, I'm also excited. I'm super excited.
I was looking, actually, you are the same, because we were texting during the night, and I'm like, okay, this guy has got much pressures than I do. Well, allow me to appreciate our partners who are the Media Challenge Initiative, CAST, DW Academy, the United States Mission to Uganda, and the European Union. So beautiful about that. Look at the communities, look at the circles.
MCI is big. Actually, I see MCI in the future, and we're doing so many things. I mean, solutions journalism to begin with. That's something that speaks to the fact that we are leaving the old, the type of news that just tells you what's happening that's bad and scares you. In fact, psychiatrists during this entire period of COVID-19 was saying, cut down on the amount of time that you spend on these news platforms. Why? They're propagating a lot of bad news, that's one thing, and they're scaring you so much, so you should just keep away. But with this solution that MCI is just advancing, solutions journalism, consuming news is actually something quite enjoyable. You're learning things that you can actually put into practice, that you can implement in your society, and we're better for it.
I'm just so proud that anyone who walks out there and they say their MCI is like a pass for them. We have the MCI TV that gives you factual and truthful stories. Get it or cut the crap of the politics arena where people say there is no COVID, or we can't do this, people are losing lives, people are dying. Apparently we are in big numbers of 20,000.
Allow me ask, what happened to the COVID story? Because today we're talking about undercovered and underreported stories. I feel like this is one of those. April, March, we were talking about how we had, let's say, 2 new cases registered today. 4 new cases.
The borders are closed. The borders are open.
We would wait for that time. I don't know, was it 10 p.m. at night when the minister would come on air and tell us, okay, this is what happened today. But what happened? Right now, nobody cares.
And it also comes with a series of events that come in a big event, in a big situation. When we talk about the pandemic and then we talk about elections, these are things that are coming and are undercovering some of the things. In this case today, when we are going to be talking about underreported issues, we are looking at, yes, we did report the COVID-19 pandemic, but the situation comes when we have an election in the pandemic. And so some things will be underreported, so giving others priority.
What you're saying is we get excited by certain things and forget about the things.
Yes, we are moved by a series of events and forget the first events that opened the main events.
The main event. But then as journalists, we should be cognizant of this. We should have that understanding. We're not just going with emotions, going with a vibe, giving people what they're excited about. We are actual... I would like to say we create impact and we point people in the right direction. That's what I like to believe about us journalists. So you as a journalist, you have practiced for I don't know how many years. What do you think we should do as individuals to keep ourselves grounded and not just go with a wave of emotion?
As a journalist who has not practiced for many years, but a product of the Media Challenge Initiative, being a fellow, I've got lots of trainings. I look at ethics, things we have to consider while practicing to make ourselves credible. You know, there is this word called credibility. Certain media individuals, certain media stations are credible. Before Ruto puts or tweets about something, I am not sure whether it is true.
True.
So when we look at the ethics, how we practice our professions, it's so important that we make ourselves relevant. The most times we ignore our profession, our ethics, how we do things, then we shall lose credibility. In that case, credibility is so key in the journalism profession. What are the factors that push it is the ethics. Are you following the ethics of journalism to practice or be credited for whatever you put out? Because you are the informers, you are the agenda setters. You are framing what the community should be or what the entire country should be.
Yes, indeed. But then moving away from ethics slightly, I began to notice that one of the undercovered stories, once again, was climate change, this entire crisis. We're supposed to be doing things, but we are not. And sometimes you can say that people genuinely do not have the information. And most of these things are very difficult to communicate. Even somebody who understands English very well finds it very difficult to understand things like global warming, greenhouse gases, and all those funny things. But now, think about the individual who does not speak English, who speaks Luganda. That's the only language that they speak and understand. Are we doing enough as journalists to get this message, translate it into this language, convince these people that this is what they're really supposed to do, because we have a dire situation over here?
In this case, I want to speak for my country, Uganda, where we have no space for protesting like the whites who protest global warming, who protest the climate change, and the people accountable listen to that. Now, in Uganda, as a journalist, it is our responsibility, and I think that is why today we're talking about underreporting. It is a pandemic, there is an election in a pandemic, but how about climate change? Yes. If the climatic change reporter does not come out and say, put our leaders accountable and be like, Ruto, look, this is happening, then they will not know. So it is our responsibility, before we even let the local communities know about a climatic change problem, are we putting our the people accountable, the administrators, the people who govern, who run the system accountable? Because these, in our culture, in our system of Uganda, I have not seen Ugandans demonstrate for climate change.
Wow. I see you bringing in so many factors here. Let me see if I can break that down. We have multiple players here.
Yes.
We have politicians.
Yeah.
Those are the people that create the law and everything. And we also have the law enforcers, you know, the soldiers. And recently, 2 weeks ago, we had riots. So many bad things happened. So many regrettable things happened. And you mentioned that we cannot riot, we cannot protest. I feel deep down inside that's that is one of the things that you are hinting on.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Exactly. My concern is we cannot protest this in a pandemic. Yeah. But surely we are ignoring climatic change in the pandemic. We look at countries like Austria that have come out and said, guys, yes, the pandemic is real, the pandemic is about what happens after the pandemic is gone. Our climate is no more.
Yes, that's a fact. I noticed in the beginning of the lockdown, all these stories that just went into the media about air quality, how it had improved and all those things.
Yeah.
But then it's like a trend. It happens for 1 to 3 weeks and it's totally forgotten. Now, media practitioners, as you have mentioned and been very explicit about, should keep themselves grounded. And this is me now addressing you.
Thank you.
Ourselves grounded people. We should know the facts that are happening. We have the pandemic, yes. We have climate change as well, yes. But then we also have an election. Do not let one thing outweigh the other thing because it may seem like the most exciting thing for the moment. Let's keep our minds and eyes focused on the things that actually matter, okay?
And that is why we are speaking, keeping journalism alive in a time of uncertainties. Because despite, regardless of the pandemic, some issues have to continue. If we are reporting environment, if we are reporting gender-based violence, we are in the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence with the women and the children. But this should not be covered up by the pandemic. This should not be covered up by the elections process. This should not be covered up by anything, but still acknowledge, commemorate, and look at certain things continue. Reasons why we are saying keeping journalism alive. Well, if we can take the audience to our agenda for today and what they should expect today. What are you super excited for today?
That's a very, very tricky one. As Antonio mentioned, I'm excited to see Caleb. Caleb has achieved so much. I'm telling you, just the things that he has done, if I were to detail them, goodness Lord, your mind would be blown. CNN, he has worked with CNN.
There's one thing I've always asked about whenever I see Caleb, and I'm like, okay, this Nigerian, what is he looking for in Uganda? I mean, what else is he, what training is he seeking? Like, he's managing this, he's working for this, but learning never ends.
It never ends.
Learning is always learning. There is always something new to learn, and I think I want to appreciate these guys here for always giving opportunity after opportunity after opportunity.
Yes, indeed. But I have to mention, Caleb is the founder of Minority Africa.
Yes.
And that's particularly relevant to today's topic. We were talking about how minorities are marginalized in our coverage and how, for instance, the example that I mentioned earlier, how there's gender-based violence. Female genital mutilation, I must say, has gained some good coverage, though there's still a lot that needs to be done. So as the founder of Minority Africa and having this as his particular focus in this entire establishment that he runs, he is one of the key speakers to look out for. Another person
I'm also looking at Carol Aliba. If you have got the taste of Carol, you do not want to listen to any other person.
Okay, tell me more.
Experienced, with a lot of information, with a lot of influence. She can make the undoable get done.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to see her because she is a journalist. She is a journalist that is measuring, who has looked at the unsaid, unpublished, sometimes I want to say she's an activist. I don't know, she will correct me. But she's always said put the unsaid or the untouched things out to the light to be.
Yeah, and I remember Reuters, was it last year? She was...
she scooped awards and...
Goodness, she has achieved, she is accomplished, she's quite something. But now moving on to another Carol, a friend of mine that I appreciate so much. Carol Beyanga. Goodness Lord. She is the head of digital content at Daily Monitor.
These are the people who are making the print media alive. You know, there have been these theories of, okay, the come of TV is covering the come of print.
Yeah.
But trust me, there's a lot of professionalism in Daily Monitor. She is one of the females, I think, who has helped put up the media, the female space, who have helped define the female gender in the journalism industry, and I much appreciate her for that.
Okay, so yes, we're heading in for something very brief here.
Yes, and I think we should also mention about Blanche Msinguzi, who is the Uganda Radio Network data journalist, Uganda Radio Network. I want to appreciate them for whatever. These guys have filled us with lots and lots of information from our country to from all corners of the country with their site, because they are available. I think when we talk about media viability, we have to talk about them as well, because they have made sure the media's viability is the media is felt in terms of uncertainties, whether with or without. We talk about Kemi Falodan, Pobin Project founder. And later, we shall have Lisa Kanyomozi Rabomi, who is the next journalist, radio journalist.
Radio. She's hosting this entire panel, and I'm so excited for this. And one thing that I have noticed here is the representation, gender equality. I can see three ladies here and 2 gentlemen, which once again shows you that MCI is very, very considerate when it comes to all these different things.
And maybe one thing we need not to forget, there's going to be a session with Dr. Bill Silcock. I can't wait for that. I can't wait for that.
The skills session for today is going to be something really deep. If you're a broadcaster out there, or if you're interested in just anything to do with broadcast, this is something you must not miss. Not at all, okay?
Well, Dr. Bill Silcock is from the University of Arizona, one of the most respected journalism programs in the world, my brother. If you're a TV or radio journalist, then you've got to look for this session. I mean, today, like Ali mentioned, is going to be quite a good experience, and in the interest of time, I think we're going to have one of our moderators, actually our moderator of the day for this session, that is going to be taking in just 5 minutes. We're going to be live with them via Zoom, and those on Facebook shall also be following this conversation, as well as YouTube and tweet, as we let our tweets flow.
Our people wild out.
Lisa Kanyomozi. So I think we're going to have a debrief of what is going to be in the session, introduce to us the guests of the session, the panelists, and then kick this started. I'm looking forward to having this.
Yeah, so let's run in for a break. Catch us on the other side.
Guys, what's up? It's your girl Cookie, aka The Last One, aka The Dreaded Voyage. And guys, today is Sunday, and it is the 3rd day of the expo at the Inter-University Media Challenge. It's been 3 days of hard work, 3 days of digital skills, 3 days of panel discussions, 3 days of so much, guys. This is where people's career starts. I am moving and I'm getting into the mobile newsroom where all the magic happens. We have the editors, like I said, we have the anchors, and we have the reporters trying to finalize with their work. We're going to move, and you're going to see for yourselves. But the best I can tell you is the feeling is overboard. I'm panting so much as if I'm the anchor, but I'm not even a judge. Anyhow, let's get in and let's see how it's going to be going down.
I'm happy to be here. We're working on our stories, and finally we are getting up to, we want to present finally. Yes please. Yeah.
So what is your role today?
I'm editing stories, and we are coming up with scripts after editing.
I'm very ready for anything that comes.
How do winners look? Say something to the camera. Say something a winner would say.
Winners look like me, so if you want to win, just look like me.
I'm so sorry guys, I do not qualify because I don't look like him.
I feel energy, though kind of shaking, but I have energy.
I'm feeling excited. I can't wait to represent my campus. Just tell me how you feel. How do you feel? Because you're super confident. I want to hear that.
Well, I feel nervous, yes, but then I always turn my nerves into confidence, and that gives me a way to relate with people because I want to do stories that are for the voiceless.
There's a salon in the room, guys. The mobile newsroom has a salon. Please move with me. Come with me, come with me. So. I'm guessing you're an anchor. There's makeup too. Hi, how do you feel?
I feel very excited and happy.
How do excited people look?
Well, they look exactly like I do.
What's your name?
My name is Kanan Arinda.
From where?
From Uganda Christian University, UCU.
I hope you're as excited as I am because we're going to get everything covered for you and you're going to have such a fantastic moment. Till then.
So from a media perspective, we have been affected, no doubt about it. Some of the effects have been positive, majority have been negative. If you look at, for example, the anxiety that journalists have gone through, especially covering stories. I'm talking about the early stages of COVID. There was a lot of anxiety, a lot of unknowns. So certainly their mental health wasn't, spared. And I believe that so many are still going through the rigors of the fear of covering a story because you don't know what's going to happen. So there have been effects, of course, on how you report. I mean, imagine how interviews have been done with the fear of not contracting COVID. So you had to learn how to conduct an interview, keeping social distance, and making sure that you only protect yourself, but also protect others. So the method of work has also been affected. You had to be extra careful. You had to sanitize. You have to put on a mask all the time. Certainly it slows you down. The effectiveness of a journalist has been slowed down. I think in terms of response, one was to align the content, what kind of content should be produced. So everything we did had something to do with COVID because it touches every sector of the world economy. It brings the world to a standstill. So it was imperative that we realign our content to try and be more relevant to the Ugandan. But also in terms of method of work, of course the shift kind of system has been able to show us that actually people can do more. Conferences, which have been a success, a huge success. You probably think that has been some of the positives for COVID-19. And I believe we've done so many. It has been an eye-opener. We've even transcended the way business is conducted for companies. We've done AGMs on Zoom. We've done, meetings for big companies on Zoom, conferences that ideally would never have taken place. We've used the advantage to, use our technology to be able to create what everyone calls the new normal. We've been able to understand that working from home is possible, something that was inconceivable pre-COVID. So you're looking at us learning new ways on how we can get the best out of our journalists, but also safety. I know that in journalism school, safety is something that you're taught to the latter, but something that journalists sometimes take for granted. So you realize that your kit today as a journalist when you're going out in the field must have a mask. You must, when you're conducting the interview, you must do it in a certain way. So, but also SOPs, standard operating procedures or protocols have been introduced. then you cannot just walk into a media house without sanitizing. You cannot walk into a media house without a mask, and you have to observe the social distancing. The media was a bit slow to actually take this very seriously until when things started to heat up. So I think in future, we shouldn't only focus on what you people call day two journalism. I think it's important to think beyond our horizon as the media. For the young journalists, it's another opportunity, one, to be inspired that the profession that you chose is actually very, very impactful. But also seeing the opportunity. We've seen our own journalists here become stellar performers. And the interesting thing is that COVID journalism has also helped us to explore the other platforms like the social media reporting, the iReports. I mean, creating a whole new way of reporting about journalism. We've seen WhatsApp videos, you know, people doing live reporting about COVID. So for young journalists, I think it's the best time to be a journalist.
Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has uncovered many talents that have taken over the entire media industry by storm. For the past 8 years, over 4,000 students have gone through this amazing concept and are now working with major media houses, both local and international. Get ready for Season 9 of the Inter-Institutional Media Challenge on the 24th of November 2020 as we audition another set of media students with different journalism skills. The audition will be streamed live on all our Media Challenge Initiative social platforms, and from 30th November to 5th December, we will host the Media Challenge Expo under the theme, Keeping Journalism Alive in Times of Uncertainty. Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry, practical journalism skills building sessions, and live pitching sessions with media recruiters. Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has uncovered many talents that have taken over the entire media industry by storm. For the past 8 years, over 4,000 students have gone through this amazing concept and are now working with major media houses, both local and international. Get ready for Season 9 of the Inter-Institutional Media Challenge on the 24th of November 2020 as we audition another set of media students with different journalism skills. The audition will be streamed live on all our Media Challenge Initiative social platforms, and from 30th November to 5th December, we will host the Media Challenge Expo under the theme, Keeping Journalism Alive in Times of Uncertainty. Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry, practical journalism skills building sessions, and live pitching sessions with media recruiters. Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation.
Well, you're all very welcome to the Media Challenge Expo right here. It's a 2020. My name is Lisa Kanyumozi Raboni, and I will be your moderator for today's panel. Today's panel is number 4 of the panels that have been happening. Yesterday's was on media via and how journalism can survive. We spoke about community and the needs of the audience, media collaboration, as well as building team capacity to have multiple skills. I'm pleased and honored to be part of this panel today. I work as a journalist on Next Radio. I'm also a content creator on Conversations with Kanyomozi, where I usually do conversations around feminism and unlearning as well as relearning different concepts. My panel is amazing. I am excited. It is above me, it is beyond me, and I can't wait to just introduce them to you. The first one is Caleb Okereke. He's the founder of Minority Africa. We've got Carol Ariba, who's a freelance journalist. We've got Blanche Musinguzi, who's a Uganda Radio Network data journalist. We've got Carol Bayanga, who's a Daily Monitor digital editor, and Kemi Falodin, who's a Probin project founder. Hello, how are you? Let's start with Caleb. I'd like to introduce you. Can you please share what you do, what your organization does, and the likes? Hi, morning.
Publication that uses data-driven multimedia journalism to tell minority stories from across Africa. We cover women, sexual minorities, ethnic minorities, persons with disabilities from a solutions journalism lens.
Okay, thank you very much. Carol Ariba, can you please share with us?
I need to unmute that. Hello.
Yes.
I do. I'm called Caroline Ariba. I see there that you have a freelance journalist. Yes, I'm a freelance journalist, but we are backing Health and Environment Reports Africa. It's a platform that uses a string of journalists across the continent to tell stories around health and environment. Multimedia, that is, lots of documentaries and long-form reporting. We'll be launching early next year. For now, we're in the teaser phase, and I'm very happy to be here today.
Thank you very much. We're excited to see what you have in store for us next year. Carol Bayenga.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us.
Morning, Lisa, and morning, everyone. My name is Carol Bayanga. I am the managing editor for digital content at Monitor Publications Limited, where we basically manage all the social media or online e-paper for all the digital content that Monitor puts out. So that's the team I sit and work with, and that's what we do on a daily basis. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Kemi Falodun, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. There's a bit of a network issue though.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Please proceed. I think, yes, we can.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Kemi Falodun. I'm a writer and co-founder of Probin Project. So Probin stands for Police Brutality in Nigeria. We started a few months ago where we've been documenting stories of police brutality in Nigeria because so these things happen a lot. There are stories and lots of stories, so we decided to have a platform where we can put everything, just document everything. So that's what we've been doing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Then the last one, but Blanche Musinguzi. Thank you for being here. I'm very excited to learn about your type of journalism as well. You're muted.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Hope you are getting me now.
Yes.
Yes. Musings Branche, a recent graduate of Columbia Journalism School. I graduated with a Master of Science in Data Journalism, and I decided to come home and start experiment things and see how things are working. Currently, I'm working on, I'm helping journalists to do data-related stories from election data ahead of Uganda's election, which is within less than 40 days from now.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's just get into the topic. A few house rules. If you are not part of the panelists, kindly mute your mic so that we do not have any background sound. We are going live on Facebook and YouTube. So thank you for tuning in as well. Also, if you'd like to follow the conversation on social media, it's hashtag Media Expo, MCI Expo UG. Hashtag MCI Expo UG. So today's conversation is around beyond the headlines, unreported, underreported, and ignored issues and stories. This conversation comes from a lack of diversity and inclusion when it comes to reporting stories, discrimination, underreported issues, underlying issues, and we want to just understand who is ignored, why are they ignored, as well as come to a consensus of what are the alternative platforms to report to these stories, or journalists who are doing the necessary work. I'd like to make a loud announcement to the sponsors for this, which is DW Academy, EU, CAS Uganda, US Mission in Uganda, and we'd like to thank you very much for supporting this work. I want to ask each one of you that are on the panel, what were your first thoughts when you had on this conversation, or when concerning a conversation around beyond the headlines, when we're speaking about underreported, ignored stories? What are your thoughts when it comes to that? Let's start off with Carol Beyanga.
Okay, so thank you, Lisa. I think my first thought was what is actually reported a lot. And my first thinking was, okay, yes, for sure, politics, governance, and business is reported a lot. And I feel like out of that, everything else is under reported. So I did a small, I do have a small presentation. I'll try and take as little time as possible to go through it because I know we're many. Basically, stories that are underreported, unreported are those that may get some space in the paper, but it's it's little. It's just a small story somewhere. It's not followed up. It's the news. It's the main news that happens. There's an event happens and a big thing happens, and that's it. Some of these stories are like domestic violence. I know we've seen stories on domestic violence, but it's just the story. It's just domestic violence. This person was beaten and everything. There is no in-depth reporting as to why this person, what happened, what were the underlying circumstances. Why has this gone on for long? There's many things to talk about domestic violence in that regard. If you look at rape, defilement, harassment, the Me Too movement never really took off in Uganda. It did in the West. It did even in China, as a country that has it's a bit difficult to do certain stories, but it did. And in this country, the statistics every year are just overwhelming, from the police, from different organizations that deal with this issue. But we never really do in-depth stories about this. We never really, take on a series and do that kind of stuff. Minority groups, these are people who are living with disabilities, or we have particular tribes in the country that are a few. They're the tribes that they're few number and they suffer a lot of discrimination, but we never really talk about that. People with albinism, basically minority groups get undercovered. They are not covered as much. Then a big issue for me is positive stories of success. We only do success when someone has won an award that's amazing, has won the Grammys, or was nominated there, or that kind of thing. But there are very many positive stories that are much smaller and would be of help to communities, but we never talk about them. If I can give an example, if a school has in a rural area has somehow found a way to keep their enrollment high, or keep it level or grow it high, and they are seeing kids go from primary to secondary, and it's a good story. We're not covering things like that as much as we should. and also had boring but important stories. You know, the environment, people can think that's hard, that's boring, but they're very important. You know, education and health. These are some of the stories that we are not covering as well as we should, and yet they must be covered because they affect our society each and every day.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we've got that. Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah. And oh, sorry, that's the last one there. That's stories that affect daily lives. I put there speak of Chaliwaja FM or Nansana TV. You know, in our communities, we have so many things that are happening. I live in Chira municipality, and a lot is happening in this place in terms of the building, in terms of economy and everything. But we don't report it that way. Yet, if we did, for example, a series on how these towns are growing, what's doing right, what's not doing right, I think it would be of benefit both to the residents and even for the government to recognize areas, you know, that they can sort of, you know, make money from and stuff like that. But we're not reporting this as well. Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Perhaps maybe I could talk about this later, maybe.
No, please go ahead.
Yes. I can go ahead. All right, fine. So why are these stories undercovered? First of all, because media houses generally tend to veer, like I said, towards governance, politics, and business. And it's not just in Uganda or, you know, Africa, it's everywhere. You know, if you look at even the big media houses, CNN, BBC, I tend to think Al Jazeera is slightly different, which is quite interesting, and I kind of like what they do. But many media houses will always report to us. And it's important for us to report on these things. But if we are forgetting the other important things, then that's a problem. And then news has built its reputation around, you know, things that tend to go wrong. Scandal, corruption, disaster, that's when it makes news. And that's when it's reported. So people tend to think these are the stories that must be given prominence, the stories that must, you know, get the cover pages, because the second and the third point, the third and fourth points show, that's what makes the money. You know, you do a story on a landslide, the sales will go up. You do a story on, you know, a fire that broke somewhere and a number of people are dead. It's what's going to get us traffic on the website. That story is going to get so many people coming through. So media houses tend to do that because that's where their businesses, they need to make money to pay their people and also to keep in business. So they'll tend to go for the stories that they think sell and give them, you know, money. And so the effect is that our audiences are less knowledgeable and informed on important topics, and therefore they do not make as informed decisions as they could in other areas. So they may be very well informed on politics and governance, but they're not informed as much in health and education, in, you know, women issues and children and that kind of stuff, because we are not giving them that information that they need. And the people who could have benefited from us covering these topics, unfortunately, also don't get the help that they would have gotten. Next slide, please. Yeah. So just to end, I just thought I would share some well-covered, it's not like it's all, you know, doom and gloom. There's some covered stories that I hope will be shared with the people who maybe on the Facebook or the social media platforms. But some of the well-covered stories, this is the story of environment that was done by our reporter, Alex Ashaba. I worked with him on this story, and it was a very good story because this kind of story showed that the problem of Ntoroko, why they suffer both wet and dry seasons, was not pretty much to do with the local, the topography of the area, but also the people and what they were doing to their land. So it was a very well done story, and it got some attention of the authorities. It got some attention. Some things were done to sort of improve the area in terms of improve the catchment areas of water and stuff like that. So when these stories are done, even if it may be hard and, you know, that kind of, it helps the community. And then the second story, which is my last slide, is a story that was actually done by one of the MCI people, which was by Anita and a gentleman called Fred Mujira. It was about the River Nile and how, you know, people around it are sucking it dry pretty much, you know, like they're buying areas around. It was a very well done story, again, about environment. And, you know, it shows you the importance of them, because a lot of this information I don't think people know at all. And it's not about governance, not necessarily, it's not about politics, it's about the environment, and it's something that people need to know and something needs to be done. So these are some of the stories that I think have been well done. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Again, I'm going to be giving 5 minutes to every panelist in regards to this question. So then, Kemi Faldoon, please share, what are your thoughts on these underreported, ignored stories and why?
Okay. There are reasons why some stories are underreported, and there are lots of reasons why stories are underreported. Profit, because what does it have to do with anybody, or what is their position in the society, and why are people not talking about these people? Because maybe nobody cares. But I'm also thinking of the fact that, because when I first saw the topic, my first thought was, okay, what does it mean for a story to be over-reported? At what point does a story become over-reported? Are there stories that are over-reported? So apart from politics and governance, which we always talk about, which is always in our faces, we also talk about, the reason why I'm here for this Brutality Project, we talk about numbers, yes. We know that these issues happen every day. We know that there are deaths, we know that people die, we know that people get killed, and is it over-reported? I don't know, that's something I keep asking myself, like, are the numbers over-reported? Sometimes the numbers are even accurate. But the part that is underreported, their lives. We don't know anything about these people. So people talk about numbers, they say, this person, 5 people died today, 3 people died today, or 3 people were killed today. What about their lives? And that is the part that we really don't know, which I think we should focus on, which is what we're trying to do. We want to know who they were, the circumstances surrounding the death, and how these deaths or how these instances or how these stories connect to bigger issues in the society. Because sometimes we often see these stories as one individual thing. We see it as just one thing happening, but then we don't think about the ripple effect of these stories. How, the death of one person, for instance, how does it affect the economy? Or how does it affect politics? Or how does it affect education? Or how does it affect the life outcome of someone? So let's say the breadwinner of a family, or the father or mother, or someone dies, or the uncle or someone dies, and then 2 people are put. I've seen different stories, I've read different stories like that. So I think it's important for us to also focus on the ripple effect of these stories. Yes, yes, they're underreported, but beyond the numbers, beyond all those things that we think are in our faces, we also have to think about how these stories connect with other issues in the society. So how does police brutality, for instance, how does it affect the economy, or how does it hold us back from progressing as a people? Or how does it keep people in poverty, or make them remain poor? So yeah, those have been my thoughts around this topic regarding underreported and over-reported stories regarding police brutality.
Okay, thank you very much. I like how you spoke about humanizing the numbers of people that we talk about when someone.
I actually don't like using the word humanizing.
Humanize? Okay.
Yeah, I don't like using that word. I used to use it at some point. I think I read an essay by Annie eludes me now. She's a writer. I can't remember her name right now. Yeah, and then she said something about what does it mean to empathize? Like, what does it mean to humanize someone? What puts you in a position to think you can do that? And why do you think that you have to tell one grand story about their lives or something behind the scene for you to see them as human? Because they are human already, and they are worthy already. And then I started thinking about it, so the word just sort of became uncomfortable for me to use at some point.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that to light. I think now I've learned something. Blanche Musinguzi, I'd like to hear, as a data journalist, what are the underreported stories and ignored stories, and why is that?
When I got here that question, the first story I thought about was the biggest story that we had in Uganda of recent, That was the death of more than 50 people after the arrest of presidential candidate Robert Kyagulanyi, aka Bobi Wine. I felt everyone would say that that story was overreported, but me, I think it was underreported in a sense that at the end of it all, we never got to hear, to read all recent obituaries of all these people who died. I know I read a few obituaries in the Daily Monitor. They were very short and brief, but without the obituaries of all those people who died. I think that was an underreported story. And that's where we usually ignore all these, the so-called minor voices in what we write. You have a space of 600 words in a newspaper, it's tight. So you start by quoting a minister, you quote an expert, you quote another expert, your space is done. But you have not quoted the ordinary person. So whenever we do studies and we don't bring in the voices of the ordinary people, that for me becomes an underreported story, even when we feel that it's an excellent done story. Then I think we tend to usually get voices of ordinary people during elections at this time. When candidates are on the campaign trail, that's when we get TVs interviewing ordinary people, newspapers quoting ordinary people, and after that, we miss a lot of voices from these ordinary people. And for me, when a story misses an ordinary person, it becomes an underreported story, even when you may think that is an excellent done piece. Second, so from this point, I was talking about the perspective of how we approach stories, the angle we take, and where do we decide to end the story. A story, when you end a story without an ordinary voice, I don't feel that that's a well-done story. So that basically is general. We need to focus on interviewing ordinary people. Second, let me talk about the opportunities that data journalism offers. As I said, I'm helping my colleagues at Uganda Radio Network to find stories from numbers and attach meaning to these numbers. For instance, in the ongoing campaigns, we have over 2,659 candidates who are nominated for MPs, directed elected members of parliament, and women representatives at the district level. So what does that number mean? Who are the people, for instance, who are the constituencies that have the highest number of contestants? There are constituencies that have 10, there are 40 constituencies that have more than 10 contestants. Then half of those people who were nominated are independents. That's around 1,380 something. I'm forgetting the exact number. So that's an easy information to get from the Electoral Commission. Though when you go there, they give you Excel, they give you PDF, they don't give you Excel, so they want to scare you from analyzing that data. But if you have the skill of turning that Excel into a spreadsheet or an Excel sheet, you basically do that basic analysis. So this offers us a lot of opportunities, and it's not too much information. Anyone with basic information of using Excel and Google Sheets can do analysis of any kind. You pick a story from data, you tell it. These are stories that no any other person can tell. For instance, before coming for this,
I'm just going to cut you short, Blanche, and then just follow through with, because I have questions in that line for you. And I'm looking at the time. So Carol Ariba, I'd also like to hear your thoughts in regards to this conversation.
Hello.
Hello.
I think I sent slides. Could Anika or Abbas, does someone have some slides?
Yes, we're going to put them up shortly.
Yes. So mine would be mostly to look at the conversation from a continental level and then probably bring it back to Uganda. Because if you notice, most of the journalists on this panel are knocking down borders. Some may be reporting for media houses right here, but the conversation goes beyond just Uganda. So as my slides come on, I was hoping they would come on.
We're working on it.
You're waiting on it. Let me just wait for that. Okay, so like Carol, is it ready?
It's not ready. Maybe let me have Caleb speak as we arrange the slides so that you can work with your presentation. Caleb, your thoughts.
Hi, sir. Same question.
Hi.
Can you repeat
You also
the
have
question?
slides.
No, I don't.
Oh,
have
the
slides.
questions. What are your thoughts on underreported and ignored stories? Why is that? And yeah.
Awesome. So I think for me, it's very important for me as well that this panel is actually called Underreported and Ignored Stories. Because most times what you hear is unheard voices or the voiceless. And the problem with statements like unheard is that it exonerates the person or the people who do the unhearing. It absolves them of blame. But when you say ignored, it connotes that someone is deliberately ignoring, and that's most of what happens with the stories that are underreported. You bring it to your newsroom and someone says, we don't want to cover this story. So I think fundamentally we must understand the language around like ignored and unheard. And then, so when we recognize the role that we play both as storytellers and as journalists or how possible it is for us to unhear somebody or to ignore somebody, then we are much more cognizant of or much more attuned to how to stop it. So I think in this regard, and with the work we do at Minority Africa, one of the very fundamental focus of our work is consistently interrogating our bias. Because for a story to be underreported, it's for several reasons. Sometimes it's bias, sometimes it's because someone just doesn't want to do it. But one thing we consistently do is interrogate even our own selves and our own reporting. So I think that's the first message I want to leave us with on the panel today. Be conscious of how you can deliberately ignore somebody. Be conscious of how your bias can influence the story you choose to cover. I'll give you a small example. So currently I'm in Lagos and I'm working with the AFP for a few weeks. And I resumed this week, but one of the very first stories I'm doing, which I have to file today actually, is about insurgency in the north and Boko Haram and people who have been the recent massacre and how culture and film can change that. And I chose it because it's sort of what I'm passionate about doing. I want to cover stories that people would often ignore, people would not go in depth into looking at. So when you interrogate yourself, you're much more aware of how you might be contributing to the unhearing or underreporting or ignoring that we see.
Okay, thank you so much, Caleb. Carol, we have got the slides ready, so we are ready for you. Thank you for your patience.
That's okay. So can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so mine did not have as many write-ups. I thought I would use more very quick picture-like slides. And I thought under the beyond the headlines, under unreported, underreported, and ignored issues, we would ask the questions, what are we leaving behind? You'll notice I'm reading this way because I have my laptop here. What are we leaving behind calls to question the entire conversation around how do we report about Africa? Do we romanticize it? Is it just about safaris? For example, every time you report about Africa, it looks like we have the extremes. It's either very nice or very bad. It's the in-between. that I think the issue of unreported and underreported issues begin to raise. This is going a little faster than I anticipated. Could you just pause on that?
Slow down, please.
Yes, slow down a bit. I allowed for it. You can go to the next slide.
The next.
Oh, that's behind. Next. There. So I'm going to go into the gray areas. Can we figure out where the grays are? It's not just merrymaking and sorrow. I am probably also one of the people who enable this, because it's either it's war and disease, or come on this safari, we have this music, we have this food. What happens with the dialogues that are going on? Because Africa has a lot of emerging economies. How about the elephant in the room, which is climate change? We just talk about it in extremes. Oh, look, it's flooding. Oh, look, it's drought now. What happens in between? Could we just go to the next slide, please? So the in between then is what calls to question the objective of journalism, the objective around reporting about certain issues. When we talk about climate change, for example, and all the issues that drive climate change, are we doing it exhaustively? One would argue that yes, we've reported about climate change, but then we haven't. If you see people still throwing bottles on the road, if you see behavior change, I mean, if you don't see any sort of behavior change, then you know we've not reported enough. And like Obama would say here, the issue of climate change is one that we ignore at our own peril. So we must be deliberate about how we report, choosing angles that exhaust the topic around all these issues that we think are overtly reported yet underreported. Could we go to the next slide, please? It is the issue. It is not that the topics are not reported. It is a cherry-picking format, a quick scratch on the surface that leaves a lot to be desired. We'll pause there a bit. To the next, please. We leave, next slide, please. We leave a lot to be desired in the way that we report on some of these issues that, go back please. I'm gonna just probably follow this now. Okay, so whenever we identify issues around, for example, minority groups, why is it that we speak about them in almost a passive sense, like we are not living in it? When it comes to minority issues, for example, around the LGBTQ communities, you find that it's international media that is reporting about it more than we are reporting about it. And when we report about it, we do it in passing. In this very regard, I would like to commend the journalist Patience Akumu, who consistently reported about it. She's not active in media today, but she did it consistently. I'm hoping that Caleb's Minority Africa will explore this a little more, because when it comes to issues like this that are thought to be immoral in our communities, we seem to take stands, and then newsrooms would rather just discuss it. We play safe, and yet they are ongoing. So I'd rather whatever we do, we choose a path that reports as objectively as we can about these issues. Next slide, please. So we have issues. One of the topics I'm going to discuss as I go through the different topics that I think we keep living. I mean, one of them, like I said, is climate change, and the other is the minority communities. But the next would be human trafficking. Human trafficking is one of the most unexhausted stories that we have here. It's given very dismissive attention. We see all the loopholes that allow for human trafficking, but then the way we report about said loopholes just leaves it, it's very underwhelming. So we need to ask questions around who is being trafficked, Where are the loopholes? Can we talk about adoption, for example? It's a good thing, and it's easy for us to get lost in that being a good thing. But you'll see that statistics worldwide will say, will affirm that adoption is some of the spaces in which traffickers explore. Next, please. Next slide, please. When it comes to health, I'm very passionate about health and issues around rights. When we talk about health, we seem to be a bit sexist, for the lack of a better term. We seem to think health is an issue that only women care about. When we talk about, say, infertility, can we talk about male infertility? Because it's a fact that 50% of the cases of infertility are caused by the male factor. But when you look at infertility and the conversation around infertility, it's mostly, oh, your uterus this, oh, your ovaries this, oh, you know, it's about your tubes this, whatever. And yet it's just women contribute just 50%. So I would like to think that there's a gender issue around how we report. We think about who is going to consume this content, and then we forget that we are enabling certain conversations, and we are also underwhelming topics in the way that we report. Next slide, please. Abortion. Someone said humanizing. That was the word. I also learned something there. That every time we talk about abortion, we throw statistics. Why are we quick to throw statistics and not figure out ways to explore the topic around litigation, around legal systems in general, around can we talk about abortion more than just the 1.2 million people? Can we dig into where are the gray areas of this? So in conclusion, I would like to believe that this is not a case of unreported and more a case of underreported, surface scratching as opposed to in-depth reporting, more bullet-like, hard news-like style that leaves a lot to be desired. So I hope my co-panelists can explore more on this. Thank you. Thank you. I should go on, I guess.
To be giving 2 minutes for each question for each panelist has to respond to. So we're going to start off with the first question, which is what groups of people, and I feel like at least almost everyone has touched on to this.
I think that one of the quickest impacts that it has is that it's democratized news sourcing. Previously, news was really much officialdom. What the pandemic gave us was a chance to go into our communities and tell stories from our communities because our reporters couldn't come to office and go back home in time. So we're asking them to stay at home and work from home. And that allowed us to get a lot of community news stories coming to the TV screens. I think that the other thing that it has also offered us is introspection as the media. We've been running a media model economically that doesn't work, and it's been said that the media is dying all around, all across the world, and the pandemic has offered us that time to introspect and say, is this a news model that we can work with? Maybe we need to change our models, maybe we need to do something different, and that's now what we're working on, being able to deliver content to people faster and quicker and in the ways in which that they appreciate it. But also I think that the pandemic has offered us a chance to hold government to account. Previously, the interaction between government and the newsrooms was once a month, twice a month at most. Now, because of the pandemic, we have almost a daily interaction with government agencies, and holding them to account is one of those things that the media is doing currently. We work in a news organization now. The news as a business has changed fundamentally. There's new news events and developments almost every minute. So being able to follow up on news stories and even contextualizing those stories is a hard one. And I think that what it's going to take is going to take just basic attention from media houses. media houses have to sit down and say, these are the stories that we're paying attention to, and this is why we need to pay attention to them. And one of those stories is really the COVID-19 pandemic. So we'll have a great deal of work to do in terms of follow-up, but also a great deal of work to do in terms of patience and paying attention to the things that matter. I think that the greatest opportunity that has showed itself in this pandemic is delivering news in unique ways. And many news organizations have had to do that. Finding unique ways every day to do your job as a journalist has had its own impact on our audiences. Being able to do, for example, entire shows from my home, being able to shoot promos, have interviews, package a whole show from my home, that exposed me to a whole new way of doing the media business, but also exposed me to a whole new level of interaction with the news as an entity. And I think that the other great opportunity that this pandemic has brought with it is collaboration. More than ever now, newsrooms are collaborating. International news organizations are working with local news organizations to be able to get news stories from here and relate with the rest of the world. Because the pandemic has just made us realize that we are one world.
People would you say have been ignored, underreported, and represented through unfair stereotypes? I think let's start off with Carol Ariba and then proceed.
Yeah, I'll just unmute. I think the groups that have been ignored are, first of all, the groups that we think are immoral. We don't even want to give them space. Whenever it comes to the LGBTQ issues, there's just no room for that. We also have ignored the elderly. Because we have very young population, we think the elderly do not have a voice. And even as we talk about issues around the elderly and the pension and all the pains that they go through, we speak about it again dismissively. I also think we are ignoring. We think we talk about their issues, but we don't really do that. The people in rural areas, in rural Uganda, which is almost 80% of our population, we just, again, cherry pick little cute stories about them or just their pain, and we don't go into the day in the life of a rural person, of a person in a rural community, and what does that look like when we talk about a dollar day? What does that look like? And I think that's where we need to go. Like I said, minority communities, that's say the LGBTQ, especially, and then people with disability. There's specific people with disability that do not understand how to speak up for their rights. Look at how we package our messages. Corona alone, did we take care of the people with disability? With HIV, we are only playing catch up. For the longest time, people with disability did not have special packaging, special messages for them. We are only playing catch up. So, I mean, I would like for this conversation to go on, but I think the minority groups are really just that, the minority groups here, but then there's groups that are large that we ignore, like people in rural areas and the elderly.
Okay. Caleb, I cut you short, so I'd like you to respond to this question as well. What groups of people would you say have been ignored, underreported, and represented through an unfair stereotype, especially the last part?
Yes, and I think Carol has touched on the underreporting, but I want to talk about the unfair stereotype more. I would focus more on the groups that we cover at Minority Africa, which of course are sexual minorities, persons with disabilities, ethnic minorities, religious minorities, and onward. And I think one thing I also want to state is many people think that minority is about the number, but it's not always about the number. You can be the numerical majority and still be the minority. And I think that's a very good distinction for us to move along with. So the problem list stretches beyond underreporting to also problematic reporting. So when we read stories about, for instance, LGBTQ people in mainstream African media, we see them represented as problematic. We see people reflect bias to them. We see. I once read a story in a popular Ugandan newspaper about a trans, I think it was a trans man, who told the reporter he was a trans man. But throughout the entire article, the reporter misgendered this person and kept calling them her who wants to be a he, her who wants to be a he. And then I thought, like, what's the point of running this article if you will misgender them? Like, what's the point? Don't report on them at all. So we need to approach our reporting with a lot more sensitivity, and not just with LGBTQ people, even how we cover persons with disabilities as well. You'd see instances, and I like to talk about this a lot because, like, it's just out there in the open. Actually, it's popular information that you should refer to people with disabilities in your stories outside of their condition. So not, for instance, don't call somebody crippled, because that places the condition on the person. It's name the particular disability, not albinos, for instance. Don't say albinos, say persons with albinism or person with albinism, because it shifts the focus. When you call someone an albino, what you're doing is naming them after what they are going through, and that's not who they are. There's something outside of that. So I think that's a very good distinction for us to make. So beyond the groups that are undercovered, there's also the problematic reporting, which many of us can fall into if we don't take care.
Okay, I like how you touched on being very intentional on the language that we choose to use when reporting stories, and how that affects or gives an unfair stereotype to the persons who we are reporting. The next question will be for Carol Beanga and Kemi. How has the narrative been affected by underreporting certain topics and groups? I will start with Carol.
Okay. Sorry, just repeat your question again, Lisa.
How has the narrative been affected by underreporting certain topics and groups?
Okay, I think it just goes to what Caleb was saying, that because these people are underreported, two things. First of all, they're underreported. So by the topics or the kinds of people, they're underreported. So the public does not know much about them, or the public goes with what the media decides to say about them. So if the public is, one of the groups I think that I think of tribes, for me especially, and one of the groups of people that I think has really had unfair reporting in this country is the Karimojong, a tribe in northern Uganda, and they're a big tribe, but because of the way they live, because of the way, their culture, the reporting is very, it's not nice. It's almost sarcastic. It's almost jabs at them. So the narrative then becomes, very not nice about these people. The narrative does not go beyond who are these people, what is their culture, why is their culture like that, what can we learn from them, why are they, why is it that this area has not, developed to the point that maybe people want to see it developed. And if you really go into those issues, you'll find that there are many issues that need to be taken care of. So when stories like these are underreported or unreported, the narrative ends up being a negative one, especially towards these people. It ends up being negative. It ends up being distorted because you only hear one side, we don't hear the other side, or we don't hear the full story. And the public is no less informed, really. They're just given a tidbit onto what this person is like, or what this area is like, or what this issue is about, and they're never really given, enough information. So the narrative ends up distorting a lot of the time. Another group of people, I think, that has another tribe, other Batwa, in the west, in Kasese. The reporting again is almost like that of the Karimojong. It's not, it's not neutral. It's not objective. It's most of the time it's slanted towards almost making fun sometimes. And again, that's distortion. So when we keep on, and even against people say with disabilities, people living with disabilities, that narration is always a certain way. And if we don't challenge that and then try and do it in a better way, try and do it, as objectively as possible, that narrative will keep being carried. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I think shining a light on tribes and Batwa and Karimojong and being Ugandan and reading stories and hearing, I definitely can understand or see how the narrative when it comes to the Karimojong has been distorted, for lack of a better word. because of how the stories are reported. So we are not, and now there's sort of jokes and stereotypes of who they are because of how the media has chosen to retell stories about their culture. Kemi, how do you think the narrative has been affected by underreported and ignored stories?
Okay, the groups that I think are that we don't talk about, for instance, the elderly. Of course, they have. We forget that the world is the world's population is growing or is aging, and so this is a group that we have to talk about. They have their own unique challenges. They have their own unique needs. They have their own unique desires. Another group that I think that we need to pay attention to, the internally displaced. A few days ago, or people living in war-torn environments. A few days ago, over 110 farmers were killed in northern Nigeria, in Zamfara. At first, it was reported the number was 43, and everybody was like, 43 is a lot. And then we heard that it was 110 after all. And then we don't think about the nuances. Boko Haram stories, for instance, people think, oh, they're all bad. I mean, Boko Haram is bad. But we don't also think about their personal experiences. We hear about suicide bombers. We hear about women or girls who have been trained to go to places, to bomb places. And we hear about girls who have been kidnapped, and then after a while, they don't want to go anymore. They don't want to return. In fact, when there's rumor, when rescue comes, they don't want to go back anymore. They tell you, I mean, I've heard stories like that. They tell you, I'm an important person here. You want me to go back to my former life, and they are fine there. So those are the stories that I also think we need to. So we shouldn't group. We shouldn't group everything to be the same. There are people with their own personal stories, even within groups as well. And I think we should actually dig deep and try to tell all those stories with all the nuances and with all the differences and with everything. So yeah, that's what I think regarding other reported stories and groups.
Thank you. I don't think I had ever thought of the other side of reporting Boko Haram or suicide bombers or...
Yeah, I'm actually talking about girls. I'm not talking about those training them or anything.
Yes.
I'm talking about girls who were kidnapped and then they don't want to go back anymore. They don't want to, rescue comes. I said, okay, now it's time to run. We can take you back to... They say, no, they don't want to go back anymore. I've read stories like that. They're like, no, I'm an important person here. I'm the wife of this big Boko Haram person, and you want me to return to my life to do what? So, and we don't hear stories. So we think that, oh, they are all... so I think I think we need all those small, tiny stories in all those spaces.
Okay. The next question goes to Blash Msingozi. How can data journalism be used to improve underreporting now that we have understood why it's underreported, how the narrative is affected? And this is something that you were speaking on before earlier. So just like for you to carry on with that.
Okay, thank you. Data journalism, first of all, you can employ it at 3 different levels. You can employ it, find a page, identify a page, go and investigate that page, or investigate data to find its trends and go to interview people to attach meaning to those trends. Second, you can use it as a context of a story. You have written a story, you are in midway the story, then you introduce the perspective of the context of data. I'm proud to say that a few weeks ago, I went to the mountains of Kasese and I was interviewing Wakonjo. Those are some of the underreported tribes. I went to the mountains. I was doing a story related to elections of 2016 and the results that we got from Kasese. I had to climb to the mountains and interview the Makonjo, asking them their voting patterns. Why do they vote the way they vote? Because Kasese, for instance, the district that has been flipping Museveni and Bestie since 2001, then Bestie won it, Museveni won it, then Bestie won it again. So I was up in the mountain speaking ordinary voters. I was going to villages where there are polling stations, where Bestie near 100%. And those polling stations at a village level. So that required me to move to the mountains and speak to the ordinary people and ask them what are the issues that affects you and how can government respond to some of these issues. So in that context, I used data to find a pitch. It directed me to somewhere. I went there, I interviewed people, and I came back. So we can look at data from all those levels. Then also data can be used for fact-checking. Fact-checking is also important in the stories that we write. For instance, when these people are telling lies, and especially politicians. I was also working on a project recently that was looking at the LDUs, the impact of LDUs in Uganda. LDUs for our panels who are from outside Africa, it's a recently created layer of the security agencies in Uganda. So during the pandemic, these people committed a lot of human rights abuses. And the narrative that we are getting from the security agencies is that these LDUs have done an excellent job, especially in reducing crimes in Greater Kampala, where they have been operating for nearly 2 years. So I went to the UPDF, they gave me data on what they call the achievements of LDUs, who they have arrested, who they have prosecuted, and also who are they looked at people who have been arrested, the prosecutions that came out of arrest, and some of those LDUs had committed some human rights abuses and how that had been handled. So I asked myself, if someone says that the LDUs have done an excellent job, how can I quantify that? I went and looked at the Uganda Police Force crime statistics and tried to compare the period between when LDUs were introduced in Kampala and a year before they had not been introduced. How have crime statistics changed? And I found out that even with having LDUs in Kampala who had arrested more than, I think, 2,000 people according to the data that I got from UPDF, the crime rate had gone up in Kampala by 6%. So from that, I made a deduction that whereas the security agencies are praising LDUs to have done an excellent job in reducing crime in Greater Kampala, the other side of the story from data shows that actually crime has gone up in Kampala. It has not gone down. So that's a perspective that I introduced in a story by just looking at the data and finding meaning of that data.
Okay, thank you very much, Blanche. Now, one thing that is the core value of Media Challenge is solutions journalism and finding the way forward when we speak about an issue. So not only just raising the issue, but following through with what can we do next or how can we combat this. Before I get into the last question, I'd like to let the viewers or the audience that is watching and or listening in to please, if you have any questions, we're about to get into a Q&A session, please drop them into the chat section and the panelists will respond. But this question is to all of you. What alternative platforms can we learn from to cover underreported stories better? Are there examples of these platforms that are already doing so, as well as journalists? Let's start off with Carol Beanga.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, I think there are platforms that we can learn from. At the beginning, I had said one of the news platforms that I find, a bit different, global, that's a bit different, is Al Jazeera. I think they take the time to do a lot of in-depth reporting, especially about people and people's experiences and how things are affecting people. So you will find that if there has been a big landslide in a country, or if there's been a bombing, or if there's been a blast of nuclear, elements, that Al Jazeera will, apart from just breaking the news, the blast has happened, so many people have been killed, they will actually look for these people, in the hospitals and everything. They'll want them to tell their story. They will do this not just then, they will even wait a year, and then a year later go back and say, so what was the experience like? What has happened? What are people? Al Jazeera really does a good job on that. So I think that's one platform that we can all learn from, different media houses, in doing that. There are also, I realize that there are many people, because they find that they don't get the space in the main news platforms, say in the main news, either on TV or on radio or in the papers, they create their own magazines. So you'll find that people have a separate magazine just on farming, or a magazine just on environment, or a TV station that, for example, I realized that like Uganda, we have very many religious TV stations. So many, sometimes I think they even outnumber the mainstream ones. They're really many, and that's because I think they feel that they've not had a platform to be able to say what they want to say, to be able to put their side of the story. So they have their own platform. So, and I think some of these platforms, we made ridiculous some, but some of them I've watched, and they have a good way of how they tell stories. Some of them actually tell local stories, even if it's a religious, TV. So you'll find that it's a religious TV, but they will go and talk about the riot, and they'll talk about, as a Christian, how do you react to a riot? What are you supposed to be doing? And it's interesting, format that they do the way they do the thing, and it's in depth. So I think they're different. They're the smaller ones, but they're different people who are covering these stories different, and we can pick from those. And then we find that there are bloggers, especially online, some people who use their Facebook platforms, but then there are bloggers who have their own platforms, and they decided that they want to tackle a particular topic, whether it's finance or whether it's feminism or it's even religion, whatever it is, and they will put the time and effort into doing a good story well. So I usually tell my reporters that if we want to look up some information, sometimes these bloggers, the ones who do a good job, who you can tell they write well, they do their research well, sometimes they have fascinating and interesting information that we can pick from because they put their time and effort into doing a thorough story. So I think these are a number of platforms that are out there already and that we can look at and pick from. And just like Kemi and Caleb are doing, they have a minority report. So those kinds of people, they are focusing on something. And I think that's even Carol Riba, as she said, environment, they are focusing on particular issues, and these are people already coming up. And what we should do is I support them and also look to what they're doing and see what we can copy, especially as the mainstream media. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Carol. Carol Ariba, on this similar question, what are alternative platforms or examples of journalists that are doing this work, and what can we learn from them?
I'm going to borrow from what why am I saying Carol? Carol. I'm going to borrow from what Carol Beanga just said. We need to sort of make peace with the fact that there's a lot of one man, one army, two army journalism that is happening out there, and most of it that I consume is just individuals that start up platforms, and so I pick from wherever. I don't think I have a favorite yet. But looking at mainstream media, I'll take you back to the just concluded or inconclusive US election. And I'll use the example of CGTN. I followed every media house, and it was the same numbers. It was the same. I would sleep at 2 a.m., at 3 a.m. It was exciting. But then I bumped onto CGTN, and they had in-depth reporting on coronavirus. And then they linked it to the to the situation in the US. they showed how exactly that this pandemic influenced the entire voter turnout. They showed, and it was away from just the political commentators, and it was a style of reporting that fascinated me. Those that in my circles know that I talked about this for weeks, for days, sorry. And then I would like to also say that I'm more about topics. Whenever someone handles a topic well for me, for example, InfoNile, they have ways in which they'll handle the issues around environment and leave me bowing. So I will go to platforms for different topics. If I know someone is very opinionated or someone is grounded in a certain area, I'll always look out for them on that. So I'm still picking out who is my favorite where, but I think just overall I look out for different topics and who covers different topics well. And then I thought there's something that that Carol said again that and Kemi as well say that I think we could learn from, as opposed to say looking out for individual or big media houses or that are reporting something. It's about going to issues as opposed to media houses. So there's a Boko Haram situation in Nigeria, and I am just from South Sudan, where there's a whole issue around internal displacements and external displacements. And then we just, here in Uganda, we think it's South Sudanese refugees, but when you get inside the country as well, you'd like to follow these issues on an individual basis. And I have learned that people's Twitter pages are a source of so much. It's so much that sometimes you don't even have to go to mainstream media to understand the story. You just have to see what's trending and then click on that hashtag and get all the information that you need. So it's the humility to
Sorry, Carol, we can't hear you there. We just lost you. Okay. Thank you very much for that submission. Blush Musinguzi, what do you think is the alternative spaces that people can use to learn from as well? Or examples of journalists that are reporting these stories that are underreported or ignored?
First of all, I think the solution to underreported issues, underreported communities is community journalism, or creating a cobweb of what we call community reporters. And this is an initiative that I think all media houses should embrace. That's how you'll get a pitch from a community of the Batwa who are in southwestern Uganda. That's when you'll get a pitch from someone deep in Karamoja. And with the advance in technology, I believe you cannot go to a parish and you fail to get a person who understands, who has a smartphone, who can send you a pitch, who you can give best training and say, we are interested in these issues. If something happens, alert us. So that person can write for you a brief story of 100 words, or that person can give you a pitch for deeper investigation, where you prepare and say, this issue happened in this community. Let me go there and do a big story out of it. That's how we can get pitches and also brief stories from the underreported communities. On the issue of the LGBT community, I don't know what's wrong with our media houses. They don't do those stories. A story you'll find Reuters writing that story, and you'll not find it in our Ugandan media houses. That really is absurd. This is a community that we cannot keep ignoring for a long time.
Are there any examples of journalists that you have seen who are reporting or putting a lot of work in reporting underreported stories, or alternative platforms where this work is being done?
I think I don't have a very clear answer for that question, but my thinking is that with the advance in technology, it is becoming cheaper and cheaper to start a platform that focuses on reporting a certain community.
Okay.
You need less than 10 million set and start, if it's your passion, and start doing stories from underreported communities.
Okay, so thank you very much for that, Blanche.
Start these platforms, you can start looking for funding, and funding opportunities are very many, they are very immense. So
I think we've lost Blanche there. Kemi?
the solution that the technology gives us many opportunities.
Can you mute him? Okay. Blanche, I'm going to have to just mute you because the network connection is up and down. It's fluctuating. Kemi, this question. What are the alternative spaces and who are journalists that are doing the work?
Okay, I think of, well, Caleb is here, Minority Africa. I think they are doing a great job documenting, writing stories of, minority groups by minority groups. And I think that's also important. People in the community should be able to write about themselves, give them platforms to write. The Republic as well in Nigeria by Wale Lawal, I think they are doing a great job writing in-depth stories and analysis about on a range of topics, really, politics, culture, society, gender, and I think, they are doing a good job. Popping projects, documenting, so this one is specific. It's a long journey. We still have a lot to do, but we want to be like a data resource for issues of police brutality in Nigeria because data is not available. So, that it's going to be a long process, but the stories are available. They're working on essays, everything regarding police brutality, really following judicial proceedings happening right now and all that. So there's that. There's Start Archiving by Fuad Lawal. Though they're about to launch, and they plan to digitize, Nigerian newspapers dating back to 1960, and I think that's a very impressive project. So people can have access to all the stories, to all the news dating back to 1960. So about journalists, no one comes to mind right now for whatever reason. Well, I come to mind. I recently did a story about. I recently did a story about use of music therapy in the management of psychotic disorders. So we talk about mental illness, we talk about psychosis, we talk about all the psychiatric disorders. But what about the solutions? Who are people doing these things? So I interviewed, or I spent time with this woman, a music therapist. She goes into wards, she goes into she talks about cancer patients. She just goes into different wards. She started from, the psychiatric ward, so ways in which music can, lift people's spirits and, impact them positively. So they are different. I think it's important for us as journalists also to be solution-based. It's okay to talk about the problems, but who are the people bringing about solutions as well? I think we should also look beyond the problems and also, talk about the solutions as well.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I like how you, for lack of a better term, plugged yourself for doing the necessary work. Caleb, finally, I know everyone has 2 or 3 people have spotted that Minority Africa is doing the necessary work. So before you give your submission, thank you very much for doing the work. But what are other platforms and journalists who are doing this work of reporting underreported stories that usually do not get the light in mainstream media? And what can we learn from them?
Yes. So I think, of course, I'm going to say Minority Africa again because I can't say it too much. And I'm in fact going to paste it in the chat box in case anyone hasn't visited it yet. But from Minority Africa, what I think they can learn from us is what Kemi has spoken about how we're doing minority reporting by minorities, which is also important. So it's not enough to just do minority reporting, but who is telling the story? Because oftentimes the person who is telling the story is responsible for the language, responsible for the framing, the angle, and that's a huge part of a story as a whole. So it's not enough to just cover it, so who is covering it as well? But outside of us, another platform I find very interesting is Aicha. And Aicha was founded by Noah Omuya, who is also a Media Challenge alumni fellow of last year, when this in fellowship class. And what's very important about Noah's platform is where it's focusing on. So it's focused in Teso and Karamoja, which for those who are not Ugandan on the call, is a region of Uganda that's often ignored. I think Carol spoke about it earlier, where she was talking about Karamoja and the coverage we see there.
Yes.
So Noah is doing mostly environment reporting on this region. So how is climate changing in these areas? How does it affect the people? I would not say humanizing people again, because we can't humanize people, but basically he's bringing like a human angle into the story of climate, especially in these regions where we only tend to see people as a monolith. So yes, so Aicha, the CEO at UG, is one of them. In Nigeria, we also have Zikoko, which I think Kemi certainly knows. And what's very good about Zikoko is the content they're creating is millennial and it's also relatable. So it's not something you can find everywhere else. It's very, you can check it out actually if you have some time. You would enjoy it wherever you're from. And and what we can learn from them, I think, is how to know what your audience wants and create something in that light, but do it with respect, do it with recognizing agency. Because Zikoko covers very sensitive topics and they do it with a lot of humor. So, and yet it's not disrespectful. Many times we think humor, or many times the same people try to employ humor, it's often borders on the line of disrespect, especially with minorities. When people want to be humorous about women's rights, for instance, it becomes sexist half the time. But somehow Zikoko manages to report on sensitive topics with humor and also with respect and agency. And I think that's very important. And I'll mention InfoNow because Anika is here as well. And I love InfoNow very much. They do, I don't know how Anika thought about it. Let's just cover the now basin. But it's a very, very important platform. They use geojournalism, which is something we want to start to use as well to report on water, climate, and the environment. So yes, and of course, Pobin Project, Kemi and Pobin Project. Awesome.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that submission. I think I will definitely be checking out Zikoko. I have a kind request for Caleb. Can you please put the links of the websites or alternative platforms that you have shared down below? I've got a request for it. Okay, thank you very much. We do not have questions, but there is a comment that I think I will speak on. I think we need to encourage media houses to air such stories, but also willing to facilitate us since they end up quite expensive. And as we wrap up the conversation and give our parting remarks, I would like to start with Carol, who works in mainstream media. Specifically in regards, I just need you, 30-second response to that specific question. How can we fund these stories in alternative media?
Yes, so Lisa, it's a how can I put it? It's a tough situation for many media houses, and mainstream media houses, because like again I said, at the end of the day, they're businesses. They have to make revenue. They have to keep on keeping on. So it can be tough. However, I think there are ways to do it. I think that one is that there are a number of donors who are willing give money when certain projects, there are certain, projects, the donors are interested in health, they're interested in environment, and we can take the opportunity and work with these donors to be able to get the funds needed and report on those kind of stories, even within the country. There are either organizations that work with donors and that provide funds for these kinds of things. So I think one way is to work with those donors. The other way is to, what I've realized is to set up a team that works on a particular thing. If you have a team, an environment team or an environment desk or a health desk that is specific on those issues, you find that most of the time you'll get some of those stories done. If you don't, then it's not easy. The person, the team people who work on those stories will not be sure if their story will run. They will not be sure when they'll get the space. But once there's a team that's focused on doing those kinds of stories, then it gets easier. And once the stories are well done and well accepted by the public, and there is a debate raised around it, there's a change that is being made, then media houses will then look towards, will recognize that, okay, this tends to work. So I think that media houses need to pick on, no, they can't pick on all, but to pick on some that they believe are very important, and then put a desk behind them, and then sort of say, this is what we think for the next couple of years we want to focus on. That you guys do this kind of thing, and we'll give you the money that we can, and something can be able to come out of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Musinguzi, Blanche, your parting remarks. Just a minute.
Thank you. I think the mainstream media, which is still the most important media platform, they need to look beyond the money that they get from advertising and sales, which have also been reducing for a long time. And also, as Carol said, they need to start tapping into the donor funding. But also, I think the donors, they need to change their perspective. They throw a lot of money at government. I was in a ministry where someone was telling me that this certain donor agency came and said, we want to partner with you. Tell us what you want us, what we can work on together. And at that time, the ministry had no idea, had no proposal that they could put on the table. Really, I don't think that money, I think that money is there sitting idle. So the media executives, those people heading media industry in Uganda, they need to start tapping some of these resources or start a conversation with the donor community and say, you can fund some of the things that you are doing, and good journalism requires funding. I think that would be a better solution to the issue that we want to be covered more.
Thank you so much. I saw Caleb snap for that one. Carol Ariba, what are your parting remarks on this conversation? Just a minute.
Can I unmute? I think for me, it's that there's never been a better time to be more flexible. As journalists, like Blanche said, first of all, we owe our allegiance to traditional media. Most of us would literally not be journalists if it wasn't for them. But media is very it's transforming, and media is morphing into different phases, and we have to move with it. We just have to make sure we hold on to the core values of journalism in the first place as we do this, but also for the world to understand that good journalism of any type of story, any form of reporting needs support. So we need to get as much support as possible. And finally, I just want to say congrats to Caleb. He's my mentee. I am all kinds of proud of you, Caleb. And to say thank you to the team at the Media Challenge Initiative, especially to pointing me towards solution journalism. I'm very keen on it now, and I hope my platform can explore it a little more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Cara. Kemi, what are your parting remarks?
Well, thanks for everyone for attending. I think as writers or journalists and storytellers, we have to pay attention better or more. Sometimes we think, well, I don't know about everyone, but sometimes it's easy to fall into the trap that everything revolves or everything is happening on social media. And that's where you can only get story ideas, or that's where you can know what is happening. But there's so much happening outside social media, and we should look for those stories. Yeah, we should go beyond Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. We should listen more and pay attention and actually make effort to look for those stories that need to be told. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's very important for us as journalists, one, and two, as attendees who are also listening in, to note what Kemi said on, it's very easy for us to think that what's on social media is the only story to tell. And then we go ahead and ignore what could be happening outside of social media. Caleb, your parting remarks.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I think what I want to share as my parting remarks, first of all, is language. I think it was Pangologi Dawood who said there must be ways to organize the world with language. And it's something I very much believe. I think language has the power to make or break the world. So as a reporter, as a person who's sending out a tweet, sending out a Facebook post, posting on your Instagram story, be mindful of language, be mindful of what you say, be mindful of who you can other, mindful of how what you say can communicate or what you can be putting across. And then the second thing I want to say is money. Give us money, give media money. People want journalism, but they want it to be free. They think of it like missionary work, and it isn't so. And for instance, during the NSAS process, many people kept asking, okay, why isn't Minority Africa doing as many stories on it? And I said it's because we didn't have money to do it. So we wouldn't send our journalists into the field without giving them as much money as they deserve. So please give us money. The kind of journalism you want costs money to create. So again, money. Donate. And know that for the kind of content you want to see, something has to give. So fund if you have the money, if you can share, if you can just like and comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've had such a skilled, interesting, well-researched panel, and it has been an honor to be your moderator. Please continue the conversation on Twitter, #MCIExpoUG. This was the fourth panel so far. I'd like to, for those that are still attending, I'd like to notify you that from 12:30 to 1, there'll be follow-up discussions that will be broadcasted. And then 2 to 4, there's a skills building workshop session for students, crafting digital news campaigns, social media for journalists, and basic visualization tools. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has uncovered many talents that have taken over the entire media industry by storm. For the past 8 years, over 4,000 students have gone through this amazing concept and are now working with major media houses, both local and international. Get ready for Season 9 of the Inter-Institutional Media Challenge on the 24th of November 2020 as we audition another set of media students with different journalism skills. The audition will be streamed live on all our Media Challenge Initiative social platforms, and from 30th November to 5th December, we will host the Media Challenge Expo under the theme, Keeping Journalism Alive in Times of Uncertainty. Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry, practical journalism skills building sessions, and live pitching sessions with media recruiters.
So from a media perspective, we have been affected, no doubt about it. Some of the effects have been positive, majority have been negative. If you look at, for example, the anxiety that journalists have gone through, especially covering stories. I'm talking about the early stages of COVID. There was a lot of anxiety, a lot of unknowns. So certainly their mental health wasn't, spared. And I believe that so many are still going through the rigors of the fear of covering a story because you don't know what's going to happen. So there have been effects, of course, on how you report. I mean, imagine how interviews have been done with the fear of not contracting COVID. So you had to learn how to conduct an interview, keeping social distance, and making sure that you don't only protect yourself, but also protect others. So the method of work has also been affected. You had to be extra careful. You had to sanitize. You have to put on a mask all the time. Certainly it slows you down. The effectiveness of a journalist has been slowed down. I think in terms of response, one was to align the content, what kind of content should be produced. So everything we did had something to do with COVID because it touches every sector of the world economy. It brings the world to a standstill. So it was imperative that we realign our content to try and be more relevant to the Ugandan. But also in terms of method of work, of course the shift kind of system has been able to show us that actually people can do more. Conferences, which have been a success, a huge success. You probably think that has been some of the positives for COVID-19. And I believe we've done so many. It has been an eye-opener. We've even transcended the way business is conducted for companies. We've done AGMs on Zoom. We've done, meetings for big companies on Zoom, conferences that ideally would never have taken place. We've used the advantage to, use our technology to be able to create what everyone calls the new normal. We've been able to understand that working from home is possible, something that was inconceivable pre-COVID. So you're looking at us learning new ways on how we can get the best out of our journalists, but also safety. I know that in journalism school, safety is something that you're taught to the latter, but something that journalists sometimes take for granted. So you realize that your kit today as a journalist when you're going out in the field must have a mask. You must, when you're conducting the interview, you must do it in a certain way. So, but also SOPs, standard operating procedures or protocols have been introduced. Then you can't just walk into a media house without sanitizing. You cannot walk into a media house without a mask. And you have to observe the social distancing. The media was a bit slow to actually take this very seriously until when things started to heat up. So I think in future, we shouldn't only focus on what you people call day two journalism. I think it's important to think beyond our horizon as the media. For the young journalists, it's another opportunity, one, to be inspired that the profession that you chose is actually very, very impactful. But also seeing the opportunity. We've seen our own journalists here become stellar performers. And the interesting thing is that COVID journalism has also helped us to explore the other platforms like the social media reporting, the iReports. I mean, creating a whole new way of reporting about journalism. We've seen WhatsApp videos, people doing live reporting about COVID. So for a young journalist, I think it's the best time to be a journalist.
I think that one of the quickest impacts that it has is that it's democratized news sourcing. Previously, news was really much officialdom. What the pandemic gave us was a chance to go into our communities and tell stories from our communities because our reporters couldn't come to office and go back home in time. So we were asking them to stay at home and work from home. And that allowed us to get a lot of community news stories coming to the TV screens. I think that the other thing that it has also offered us is introspection as the media. We've been running a media model economically that doesn't work, and it's been said that the media is dying all around, all across the world, and the pandemic has offered us that time to introspect and say, is this a news model that we can work with? Maybe we need to change our models, maybe we need to do something different, and that's now what we're working on, being able to deliver content to people faster and quicker and in the ways in which that they appreciate it. But also I think that the pandemic has offered us a chance to hold government to account. Previously, the interaction between government and the newsrooms was once a month, twice a month at most. Now, because of the pandemic, we have almost a daily interaction with government agencies, and holding them to account is one of those things that the media is doing currently. We work in a news organization now. The news as a business has changed fundamentally. There's new news events and developments almost every minute. So being able to follow up on news stories and even contextualizing those stories is a hard one. And I think that what it's going to take is going to take just basic attention from media houses. Media houses have to sit down and say, these are the stories that we're paying attention to, and this is why we need to pay attention to them. And one of those stories is really the COVID-19 pandemic. So we'll have a great deal of work to do in terms of follow-up, but also a great deal of work to do in terms of patience and paying attention to the things that matter. I think that the greatest opportunity that has showed itself in this pandemic is delivering news in unique ways. And many news organizations have had to do that. Finding unique ways every day to do your job as a journalist has had its own impact on our audiences. Being able to do, for example, entire shows from my home, being able to shoot promos, have interviews, package a whole show from my home, that exposed me to a whole new way of doing the media business, but also exposed me to a whole new level of interaction with the news as an entity.
The unreported, the underreported, the ignored issues and stories was a topic of discussion with our beautiful panelists. Welcome yet again. I am Asha Kulsum. I'm going to be taking you through these with my colleague Nelson Ruto. Remember, we are still trending on the hashtag the Media Expo UG, streaming live on our social media platforms, which is at MCI Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Well, it is the Media Expo UG for the year 2020, and we are coming to you live from our offices at the Partners of Media Challenge Initiative here in Kansanga. Hope you enjoyed the session. Did you, Nelson?
Oh yes, I did. So many points that I took down here. In fact, I was overwhelmed. But one thing that I must mention is the point that Carol Ariba mentioned about how we do not cover the elderly the way we should. In fact, I started feeling really guilty, and there were truths.
Wow.
I'm being honest with you. There are so many truths that were spoken. Thinking about ourselves as youthful individuals, and we focus on the things that concern us, and yet we have grandma there back at home, and she has her own struggles. She's maybe trying to get her pension money, and for like 15 years she has failed to, and yet we are not reporting on those stories. I felt so bad about that, and I feel like it's a challenge. I think within 5 weeks, I'm giving myself that duration of 5 weeks, I need to do something about this. I'm convicted.
So there are very many elderly out there that were supposed to get some government fund, and I remember, I think it started when the pandemic was just announced, I think in April, and it was starting with Kampala, and we do not know how far it is gone, so don't you think you should start on that?
Yeah, actually, my most pressing thing, yes indeed, pandemic, numbers are soaring. Yesterday, no, it wasn't yesterday, it was sometime during this particular week, I saw a post on a friend's status, and it was a screenshot from a group, a family group, and the message was from, I think, her mother, talking about how they had lost 3 relatives to the COVID-19 virus, and that's just perplexing. 3 people from one family. They are experiencing the reality of COVID-19 while the rest of us are running around town talking about how this might be a joke or maybe sharing conspiracy theories, and yet that's not it. We need to focus. We need to get down to the things that matter and take care of ourselves. Wear these masks, sanitize, and all that stuff.
What of those things are you still practicing?
Everything. I'm practicing everything. In fact, I wear my mask. It's just that in this studio we are socially distanced, and this is a significant amount of distance. And I wash my hands, I sanitize everywhere. In fact, I don't touch places. My hands are in my pockets most of the time. So I think I'm adhering to the SOPs. I'll give myself a 90 out of 100. Yeah.
Well, that is really great, because most of the people have abandoned and they're doing away with the SOPs. But maybe to remind you is COVID-19 is real, and apparently we have the unpredicted number that our cases have risen, and we have deaths that are around 200. Well, keep a social distance, wear your mask, wash your hands, use a sanitizer. It's quite a lot. We have spoken, preached, and said all, but we shall not stop saying it all. Well, I think I want to appreciate the session that was in before we came in, that was conducted by Lisa Kanyomozi. A great job there, good work, well done. Appreciations to Caleb Okereke from Minority Africa founder, Karo Aliba, the freelance journalist, Balenshi Musinguzi from the Uganda Radio Network, Karo Beyanga, Daily Monitor digital editor, and Kemi from Poppin Project founder. That was a beautiful session.
All the way from Nigeria, by the way.
All the way from Nigeria.
I like that. MCI is continental.
I told you this thing is global, and I can't wait to see myself share a class with someone.
Keep yourself here. I'm telling you, this is where it is. Just stay in MCI and you're properly sorted. All these people, you'll shake hands with, Abasa shaking hands with Obama. We are just trailing, yeah? Just give it a couple of months, we'll be there.
If I were in the shoes of Mpindi Abasi,
yeah,
I think it would only be the pandemic that would make me wash my hands. Since the Obama saga.
Really?
But your guy has seen or met with many people.
Yes,
so I think he's almost doing it with the Trump, with Harris, with Biden.
We're just waiting. I'm here to celebrate.
With President Museveni. So it's quite a lot of people. But I think my take home is from the session, if I can put it all in a few words, it is the responsibility of the reporter, and my supervisors or the ones in command at my media station or at my base to make sure that all stories are covered at 50-50. To make sure that we tackle all the issues, because we are not a community of one color, one language, or one whatever. We are a multi-community with different people, different problems, different directions we look up to, with different thoughts. So we've got to report at all angles, at all levels, so that we cannot leave people behind. It's the era of leaving no one behind, just like our theme. Like not any condition, nothing can stop us from helping or putting solutions to different problems.
Yes, indeed. In fact, I'm very happy that you mentioned how diverse we are. An element of tribe and culture was mentioned by Karo Beyanga when she talked about how the Karamojong are covered, and I felt like it really was unfair noticing all these things that we have been doing. We associate their region with...
They're still believed to be the Akia people.
Exactly, and that's not right. In fact, it starts with us. It starts with the mindset. So if this person with this mindset goes out there and he's a journalist covering these stories, obviously there will be a semblance of that particular assumption just appearing in his story. You may not pick up on it readily, but even subconsciously you register it and you're thinking, okay, yes, the Karamojong, you know, that kind of thing, and yet that's not it. And there's so many things that we could learn from them, as she mentioned, and that's what we should be pursuing, looking for the positive in everything. And back to MCI, solutions journalism, that's it really.
And I think I would also pick leaf from Mosingo's say when he said most times as journalists and media houses, we tackle some issue and leave it unturned.
Yes.
We just like you know, when you have a sandwich and you just eat the sandwich, but you don't know what are the things that are put between the two, you know, pieces. So what in this case he was talking about the incidents that happened during this Chagulanyi's campaign. Okay, if we are reporting what is happening, what the police has done, how about we report it at all levels? We heard that the riots were in Mukono, the riots were in Kampala, the riots were in Mbarara, the riots were in all parts of the country. How about we report it from all parts of the country? What is the root cause? What is the solution? What has authority done? In this case, I want to appreciate some of the media houses that come out to tell truth or to bring us the gist or something that has been left behind in certain circumstances where we have different reports, like we earlier mentioned some time back about the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, some of us were reporting what was given to us on paper. But have we dared to go to the deep communities that even lack water, to know if they know about the pandemic, to know if they are washing their hands, because they have lacked water before the pandemic. Now the pandemic is here. Do they have access to water? Yes, the government helped us and said they're going to put water points at all, you know, points in the community. Was it possible? Putting those people accountable, because we are the eyes of the community. If we do not come out to bring solutions to the communities or to put those people accountable, I mean, we are losing it. So journalism is dying, so we need to keep alive.
Keeping alive, how can we keep alive? Exploring angles, that's another thing that was mentioned. You may have one story. In fact, I kept on seeing a back and forth between stories that were undercovered and stories that might be overcovered. Now, I see the element of an angle. You may have a story where, okay, you've had 15 reports on it, and then there's another story that has maybe 3 reports, but the 15 reports are pursuing one particular angle, and yet there is somebody suffering in line with that thing that's overcovered but has been ignored. For instance, when Blanchet mentioned that the obituaries were just very, you know, they covered a very marginal space. People were really suffering because they had lost relatives, and it was a painful time for them, but you would find them taking 3rd place. And yet the number 1 topic in the entire country was this one story that was getting so much coverage. And pursuing different angles, for me, could be a way of sorting out this issue of undercovered stories, even in these areas where the press is focusing a lot on, because we focus a lot on things but leave out so many other things.
Well, I think that is also another point to take home, because it is our responsibility to make sure that all angles are covered, to make sure, because we have got different ways of approaching all the communities, all the problems. But just imagine in one case, if all angles that are put to table, are reported about, suggested with suitable solutions, the world would be a better place. Maybe to remind those of our colleagues who are on Zoom that we are on our Facebook page. You can switch. We also have actually the media app, which is Media Expo UG app. You can just tap the app, then you'll be straight away linked to our live link as we keep the hashtags moving.
Yeah, that's MCI for you. MCI has made it very comfortable for you, very convenient for you to access all of these things. I mean, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere we have reports, we have updates, so many pictures going up every after, I don't know, 30 minutes. Trust me, you get updates as they happen. So MCI is doing this for you. Just keep up with what's happening. There is so much here that you could learn, so much here that you could be a part of, okay? So let's take part in this conversation. But, Asha, there's something I'd like to share with you. When we were told that today, the fourth day, would be about undercovered stories, I was reminded of something that I experienced in Garuga. So we're going through MCI training and all that stuff, and we've been sent out to fish stories. So here I am just running around trying to find a story for myself, yeah? But I didn't know what I was looking for. I was just thinking, I'll know it when I find it. I'll know it when I see it, okay? So, funny thing is, I actually knew it when I saw it. I landed on this story. Actually, I saw this school. The structure, the base structure, was made of brick, but it didn't really look proper. It looked like half complete and stuff like that. But then the stuff at the top was what just, I don't know, threw me off. The first floor, which is the floor right above, ground floor, was constructed with timber, plywood, and all that stuff. And yet, students were studying there. It shocked me, the fact that students are living in an area like this and not being taken care of, and yet this school was doing such a nice thing by providing affordable education for these kids. So I spoke to the director of studies, and during that interview, a pen fell through the ceiling. Like that, that's how bad it was. I'm telling you, kids were up there, and there was like a plywood sort of thingy situation happening over there. So a pen fell, and he was like, oh yeah, I see, so this is what happened, and all that stuff. Then I also walk out, and I see kids are getting food, but you could tell the beans were so watery. They're just trying to make sure that the sauce was enough for everybody. And when I asked this question, this was my very last question, have you or are you receiving any help from anybody, anywhere? His response was, and it weakened my knees, I'm telling you. His response was, no, not really. In fact, ever since we started, you are the only people from outside that have come here. Goodness, the weight on my shoulders. I'm this student journalist that's just running around trying to find a story, but then this individual looks at me as a ray of hope, an opportunity to get his story out there, to get the school some attention and maybe some help, and get these kids a proper space to learn from. So learning this the hard way, okay, I wouldn't say that's the hardest way ever, but emotionally consuming moments where you begin to realize that journalism is not just you appearing on television, playing with cameras, finding information. It's more about impact, about making a difference. That's the one defining moment in my entire just journalism.
And that brings us to a conclusion. As I borrow Leaf and Liripika from Singuzi Blanchet, who says we should always use fact checkers. Yeah. If there is a report of if there is a certain report about COVID-19, about education, about how many schools are in the country, do we have fact checkers to put accountability? Do we have fact checkers to make things right? Do we have fact checkers to check in whatever is being talked about? Well, thank you so much, guys, for being a part of us. It has been Nelson Ruto and I, Asha Kulsum. What is your Twitter handle?
Well, my Twitter handle, that's Nelson Ruto R. Yeah.
Nelson Ruto R. And my Twitter handle is @Asha Kulsum. Thank you so much for being a part of us. Remember, we have been patterned. We were patterned and are still in partnership with CAS. We are European Union, we are DW Academy, we are United States of America Mission to Uganda, and we are a project of the Media Challenge Initiative. We have been coming to you live from the Media Challenge Initiative here in Kansanga at their offices. Keep the hashtag moving, the tweets in, because we still have 2 more days to the end of the expo. It has been a virtual experience, and my experience with you guys is such an incredible one. I didn't imagine thousands and thousands of people are going to be watching me from different
countries around the world.
Digital platforms, on your tablets, on your desktops, on your Androids, iPhones. It's a thumbs up. Thank you so much for liking. Please share and make this gossip go worldwide, because we are preaching experience with expertise and making sure that journalism keeps alive in terms of uncertainties. I think it's a bye-bye from us, but the session still is ongoing, as we're going to be having skills building workshop session for students as they craft
digital news campaigns.
Using social media for their journalism and best visualization tools. We are the Media Challenge Initiative. We are the MCI Fellows. And we love Uganda, we love Africa, and the love for our profession, which is journalism, is what makes us keep on moving as we want to see this alive in all times, whether uncertainties or not.
Indeed. So yes, it has been amazing working with you, Asha. I guess it's time for us to sign out finally. I'm Nelson Ruto.
And I am Asha Kulthum. We are going to be joining you in the
session. We're going to be part of the audience. We're with you now. We're with you right now, okay? So yes, have a splendid afternoon.
Don't forget about tomorrow.
Since 2012, we have moved around many universities and media institutions with one goal: to give a platform for the next generation of journalists. And guess what? This platform has uncovered many talents that have taken over the entire media industry by storm. For the past 8 years, over 4,000 students have gone through this amazing concept and are now working with major media houses, both local and international. Get ready for Season 9 of the Interinstitutional Media Challenge on the 24th of November 2020 as we audition another set of media students with different journalism skills. The audition will be streamed live on all our Media Challenge Initiative social platforms, and from 30th November to 5th December, we will host the Media Challenge Expo under the theme, Keeping Journalism Alive in Times of Uncertainty. Join us on this journey to build and inspire the next generation of journalists. This will be the first virtual edition of the Media Challenge Expo, where over 6 days you can tune into engaging panel discussions to find solutions to critical issues in our media industry, practical journalism skills building sessions, and live pitching sessions with media recruiters.
So this is exciting, and I hope you know it. You have been invited. You are in the auditions. There is a huge chance to move forward and to become one of the Media Challenge Initiative Fellows at one point. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for all of you, and I'm excited to see what you have produced so far. Let me just give a brief introduction to who we are. My name is Miriam Olsen, and I'm since yesterday the program Director Uganda. Before that I was country representative. It's actually not a promotion, we just changed our titles. So now DW Academy is Germany's leading organization for media development. We are part of Deutsche Welle, DW, the broadcaster. Some of you might know us through TV or radio. And DW Academy basically aims at strengthening access to information and freedom of speech in many different countries around the world, including in Uganda. And it is our aim to also make the journalism education or journalism training more practical, more hands-on, because I think most of you know when you come from universities and you don't have the practical skills, it will be very, very difficult for you to find a proper job. You have the chance, of course, and you can train on the job, but it's easier to be prepared. And I think the Media Challenge Initiative is doing amazing, amazing work in this regard. They will not only give you the practical skills in one or two fields, you will be a holistically, well-equipped, task, one-man, one-woman army journalist. And I think this is a huge opportunity to take it seriously, show everything that you can. I know there's a lot of capacities within you and a lot of skills. And I'm sure you will do an amazing job, and thank you very much. We will see us around. We are there from time to time. We have been partnering with MCI since 2018, and we are continuing to partner. And yeah, let's make this a success. Thank you.